In a verdant, sunlit valley, surrounded by mountains, a pristine white dragon descends, its wings spread wide. Other dragons of various hues, green, pink, orange, gather around, their attention fixed on the newcomer. The scene shifts to a glowing magical circle on the ground where a young woman with long, light blue hair announces their arrival in the Dragon Kingdom. Before her, a young man stands in awe as the great white dragon confirms they have reached their destination. The young man, Raid, gazes forward, his face alight with pure excitement and wonder. The woman formally welcomes him, marking this moment as the beginning of his story as a dragon tamer. He stands beside the blue-haired woman, a content smile on his face. Theirs is a tale where good deeds bring good rewards. The setting changes to the divine dragon empire, Lazaria. High above the grand capital, the Dragon Knight Corps patrols the skies on their draconic mounts, serving as the formidable defense of the nation. And within that very country, inside a rustic stable, a large dragon lies resting in its stall. Raid kneels by the creature, his expression grave. He notes the lost luster of its scales and senses a weakness in its internal organs. He calls out to the dragon, Faye, asking if it has been overexerting itself on recent deployments. In this world, some possess special abilities called skills, and Raid's family has passed down the Dragon Tamer skill for generations. The dragon opens its eye, confirming that Raid has noticed its poor condition. Through his Dragon Tamer skill, Raid can hear the dragon's roars as clear voices in his heart. He serves the Empire as a dragon caretaker, but he understands the Dragon Knights are exploiting the creatures, overworking them to the point of exhaustion. Realizing this is the third time they've been so reckless, he clenches his fist in anger, declaring he can't stand it and will take the matter to the higher-ups. As he storms off, Faye's voice echoes in his mind, warning that protecting them only puts him in a worse position, earning him the title of salary thief. Raid sighs, his frustration mounting as he overhears two knights mocking him. They sneer that it must be nice to get paid well for just petting dragons, blaming him for their poor condition and threatening to report his negligence to His Majesty. Ignoring their taunts, he continues his work. A supplement is poured into a bucket of water. A quiet thought reassures him that this is how it always is, and he shouldn't let it bother him. He offers a special potion to one of the sky dragons, hoping it will make the creature feel a little better. His expression is heavy with concern. His thoughts drift to the legacy of sky dragons lovingly passed down by his family. He worries that at this rate, they will all be overworked to ruin by the Dragon Knights. The dragon, sensing his distress, advises him not to dwell on it too much, warning that his efforts will only be in vain. The unexpected counsel leaves him momentarily surprised. His brief exchange is interrupted as other dragons in the stable call out his name. One eagerly requests some of his homemade potion, another asks for a change of straw bedding, and a third simply wants to chat, despite knowing he has work to do. He runs a hand through his hair, overwhelmed. With about 50 dragons to care for, he resigns himself to the fact that he'll likely be working overtime until midnight once again. But the exhaustion gives way to a faint, determined smile. His dedication to the creatures outweighs his own fatigue. With renewed resolve, he gets to work, carrying fresh straw for the sky dragons and preparing countless bottles of his special potions. After working through the night, he looks utterly spent. Just then, a court official appears, calling his name and announcing that His Majesty, the Emperor, is summoning him. He is led into a grand throne room, where he kneels before the 37th Emperor of Lazaria. An attendant announces him as Raid Dryzen, commanding him to bow before the monarch's presence. The Emperor looks down from his throne at the kneeling young man. Without ceremony, he addresses Raid by name and declares that, as of today, he is dismissed. He stared in utter disbelief, the Emperor's words echoing in the vast throne room. He tried to protest, stammering a question, but the Emperor cut him off. His Majesty declared that the nation's sky dragons were obedient and that anyone could care for them, labeling Raid nothing more than a salary thief. Raid countered, insisting that the dragons were only docile because he had used his Dragon Tamer skill to reach out and build a bond with them. The Emperor, leaning on his throne with a bored expression, dismissed the claim as foolishness. A man beside the throne then spoke, suggesting that if they had money to waste on an incompetent like Raid, they would be better off acquiring new sky dragons. The Emperor agreed, and the advisor's sharp denial that one could even converse with dragons struck Raid with horror. The advisor's words echoed in his mind. Ridiculous. He knew how many sky dragons have been unable to sortie because of this man's foolish insistence on taming them. In an empire sustained by the Dragon Knight Corps, such ignorance was unthinkable, even from the Emperor and his nobles. The Emperor's voice boomed, accusing him of false reports and negligence of duty. He declared that while such crimes would normally warrant a death sentence, he would not defile the Empire's soil with Raid's filthy blood. Instead, he delivered the final verdict. Raid was to be banished from the Empire. Kneeling on the cold floor, his hand tightened into a fist. He knew this was wrong. His mind flashed back to a different time. His late father, a Dragon Tamer caretaker, and the previous Emperor had been good friends, their bond transcending status. But after the former Emperor's sudden death and his son's succession, the Chancellor had also been abruptly replaced. The realization struck him with the force of a physical blow. Looking at the Emperor on his throne, surrounded by his court, he understood. They were all in on it together. He was cast out, thrown to the ground by the knights. The final, cold command echoed in his ears. He was to never set foot on the Empire's soil again. Under the moonlight, he made his way to the dragon pens. Placing a hand gently on a massive snout, he called out to Faye. The great dragon stirred, asking what was wrong, but Raid could only apologize for waking them all. He then delivered the devastating news to the assembled sky dragons. He had been dismissed from his duties as a caretaker. He clarified that this was more than a dismissal. It was an official exile. He had come to say his farewells. The suddenness of it was jarring, but he knew that the Empire, fearing he might leak information about the sky dragons to another country, would likely send pursuers after him soon. Faye could hardly believe it, thinking it must be some kind of joke. Upon hearing this, the other dragons erupted in fury. They roared, demanding he unlock their chains and open the doors. They offered to help him escape, vowing to cause havoc on his behalf. He quickly raised his hands, urging them to calm down. He warned them that such an act of rebellion would only lead to their execution. He explained that even if he could free them, their escape was not guaranteed. The Empire's anti-dragon barriers would surely shoot some of them down from the sky. His expression softened with sorrow. While he was grateful for their loyalty, he could not bear to put them in danger, especially not the very dragons his own father had helped raise. The dragons fell silent, their faces crestfallen. One of them quietly asked if this meant they would never see him again. He turned to them one last time, a sad but gentle smile on his face. He thanked every one of them for everything they had shared and wished them well. He walks away from the stables, the sorrowful eyes of the sky dragons watching him go. With a clenched fist, he steels his resolve, telling himself he must not stop. For the sake of Faye and the others, he cannot allow them to grieve any further. With that thought, he flees into the night, leaving the Imperial banner far behind. He swears to himself that he will escape, no matter what. Elsewhere, a young woman with long, flowing hair whispers his name, her voice filled with concern. The commotion of his escape has not gone unnoticed. 2 Imperial guards hear a sound, one asking what it was. The other dismisses it, urging his partner to keep moving. Unseen by them, Raid slips past, his hooded cloak concealing him in the shadows. He makes his way into a dense forest and suddenly stops. Ahead, in a moonlit clearing, stands a solitary woman with long, pale hair. He is struck by her ethereal appearance, thinking she looks like a fairy of the moon. A sudden worry grips him. Standing alone in a place like this, she will surely be attacked by monsters. He hesitates, waiting. He presses on into the Walren's great forest. He recalls training on its twisted paths with his father and realizes this is the perfect place to shake his pursuers. Unless one follows the predetermined path, they will simply end up back where they started. As he moves along the path, he once again comes across the mysterious woman. Hearing his approach, she turns, a startled gasp escaping her lips. They stand face to face, a silent moment passing between the exiled tamer and the beautiful stranger. He is left to wonder who this girl is and why she is staring at him with such intensity. In a dark forest, Raid comes across a mysterious, glowing woman with long blonde hair. He is immediately struck by her presence, wondering who she could possibly be. Suddenly, a massive, wolf-like beast with sharp claws and bared teeth materializes behind her, letting out a ferocious roar that echoes through the trees. As the beast lunges, the woman gasps in shock. But Raid reacts instantly, a glowing magical seal appearing before his hand as he vows not to let the creature harm her. He recognizes the monster as a high kobold. He unleashes his power, declaring it a sealing art, dragon binding chains. From a magical sigil, countless chains of light shoot forth, wrapping themselves tightly around the snarling high kobold. With a powerful cry, he pulls the chains taut, the magical constructs digging deep into the monster's flesh and binding it completely. The high kobold collapses under the immense pressure, its neck snapping as dark blood spurts from the wound. From a safe distance, the elf woman watches, her expression one of pure amazement. He turns to her, modestly stating it was nothing great. He explains that his clan mastered these sealing arts to restrain rampaging dragons, and the dragon-binding chains can instantly subdue even the strongest monsters. More importantly, he asks if she is hurt, noting that a cute girl like her said he saved her again. As she approaches, a glowing magical circle forms at her feet. She tells him it's only natural that he doesn't recognize her. She then suggests that perhaps he will remember if she shows him her other form. Raid looks back at her, completely bewildered by her question. Her power is revealed to be a highly advanced form of transformation magic, one that ignores the conventional limits of mass and volume, allowing for a form that walks on 4 legs and sprouts wings independently. She revealed her true form, a magnificent, white-scaled ancient dragon, the very pinnacle of dragonkind. Raid stared up in awe, a single bead of sweat tracing its way down his face as he took in the sheer scale of the creature before him. This being was nothing like the Empire's sky dragons, a relatively new type. To meet an ancient dragon was unheard of. A realization struck him. Could this be the very same ancient dragon he had saved 3 years ago? As he grappled with the thought, the dragon spoke, her voice echoing with ancient power. She introduced herself as Luna, explaining that she had returned to this land upon hearing of his plight. When Raid asked who told her, She revealed it was the sky dragons he had raised like family in the Empire. He was stunned, questioning how they could have managed such a feat. Luna explained that they placed their voices into their roars, delivering the message to her. They spoke of his character and urged her to grant him the wings of salvation before his pursuers could reach him. The pieces fell into place. Ray now understood that the roars and growls he'd heard were not directed at him, but were messages meant for Luna. He felt a deep admiration for the sincerity the dragons had shown. He then recalled hearing the term Dragon Princess and asked if it referred to her. A resolve formed within him. If he ever met those dragons again, he would have to thank them. She confirmed his suspicion. As the daughter of the Dragon King, she was indeed the Dragon Princess. Ray was speechless. His father had once told him that ancient dragons had royalty who united all of dragonkind, but he had never imagined he would actually see one with his own eyes. A smile touched his lips as he processed the incredible turn of events. Fate could be strange indeed. The one he had saved by chance 3 years ago was royalty. Luna explained that at the time of their first meeting, her throat was swollen from illness, preventing her from expressing her gratitude. To repay the debt, and because the ancient dragons needed his power, she formally invited him to come with her to the Dragon Nation. For Raid, who had just been wondering what to do next, the offer was a beacon of hope. As a sign of her earnest request, she lowered her massive head toward him, awaiting his answer. Raid reaches out, placing a hand on the ancient dragon's massive, scaled leg. He confirms his decision, stating that he will be counting on her. Under the starry night sky, she asks if he is ready, and he gives a firm affirmative. In response, her massive wings snaps open, ready for flight. Meanwhile, within the lavish halls of the Lazurian Imperial Palace, the Emperor sips from his goblet, a self-satisfied smile on his face. He muses that with Raid's excessive salary gone, he can finally indulge his personal hobby, purchasing more sky dragons. He takes another sip, confident that the pursuers he dispatched have already dealt with Raid permanently. His smug satisfaction is shattered by a violent tremor that jolts the entire room, sending his goblet flying. As the shaking intensifies, the royal advisor rushes in, crying out that the situation is grave. The Emperor yelps as a nearby decorative urn crashes to the floor and shatters. The advisor, face pale with sweat, declares this an act of treason. When the Emperor questions him, the advisor insists that whatever is causing the disturbance must be suppressed immediately and orders the Dragon Knights to be summoned. Before his order can be carried out, a swirling vortex of dark energy violently manifests in the center of the throne room. The energy coalesces, and from its depths, the colossal head of a dragon pushes through, its gaze fixed upon the terrified Emperor. His gaze shifts past the intruder towards the outside, where he sees an unbelievable sight, a sky filled with dragons descending upon his palace. He can only stammer in disbelief. He could only watch in horror as the dragon, Faye, unleashed a deafening roar that shook the very foundations of the throne room. The sheer force of the draconic assault sent his royal guards scattering like leaves in a storm, their armor offering no protection against the overwhelming power. He desperately tried to regain control, shouting that he was the ruler of the Empire and ordering the Dragon Knights to restrain the beasts at once. But his command was met with panicked reports. The sky dragons were refusing to let the knights mount them. They loomed over him, its voice resonating with ancient power. It explained that a dragon's hearing is sharp, and they had heard all the conversations within the castle. The beast condemned the Emperor for casting out Raid, who was like family to them, and for even seeking his life. This, Faye declared, was his retribution. With a final, chilling command to savor his fate, the dragon unleashed a powerful gust from its maw, sending the Emperor tumbling backward, his crown flying from his head. Outside, the assault continued in full force as numerous dragons descended upon the palace, unleashing beams of destructive energy that tore through the Imperial architecture. Far from the chaos, a sudden realization struck Raid. He finally understood that he had been the one holding back these ferocious sky dragons all on his own. But he was left wondering, why? As he soared through the night sky on Luna's back, the question echoed in his mind. Why had the sky dragons suddenly gone wild? His thoughts were interrupted by Luna's voice. She asked him if his decision to accompany her to the Dragon Nation meant that he had chosen her as his partner. The question caught him completely off guard, and he could only stammer the word back at her. He quickly clarified his position, flustered, explaining that he wasn't a dragon knight and couldn't possibly form a partnership with an ancient dragon. His denial left Luna momentarily speechless. He was taken aback by her words. Luna explained that he had been taming her since he saved her 3 years ago, and now that he wouldn't officially choose her, she considered it cruel teasing. His mind raced to understand. The original meaning of tame was to place a target under one's influence and control. He questioned how he could possibly tame an ancient dragon with his skill. A shocking realization hit him. He had kept Luna tamed for 3 whole years. Appearing before him in her humanoid form, she confirmed that he had forced her into being tamed and bound her against her will, even if it was an accidental result of his healing. He understood the implication. A tamed target could hardly disobey its master. Overcome with guilt, he apologized, acknowledging how awful it must have been for her, and immediately offered to release her from the bond. She, however, calmly replied that it would not be necessary. Raid looked at her, completely surprised by the refusal. He was confused by her reasoning. Luna explained that taming an ancient dragon was impossible for ordinary humans, and because a tamer of his caliber had done it, she had no complaints. Still, he thought she would have hated it far more. As they continued their flight, she elaborated that while in this tamed state, she felt her flight ability increase greatly whenever he was riding on her back. Touching down on the ground, she added that her strength grows when he is near, and it would be troublesome to suddenly have the taming released and be weakened as a result. With a soft shimmer, she shifted back into her humanoid form and took a step towards him, beginning to speak. Her expression was gentle yet determined. She looked him in the eye and asked if he would take responsibility for binding her for the last 3 years. Faced with her demand, Raid's mind raced. Flustered, he closed his eyes as an undeniable wish formed within him, a desire to stay by her side. He recalled her smile, both in her draconic and elven forms. It had been 3 years, after all. He felt a strange, gentle pressure from her, and the thought of refusing and seeing her sad again was unbearable. He reasoned that ancient dragons are a race that values strength above all else. Surely, that must be why a being as powerful as Luna could accept being tamed by him. Having accepted his role, he followed her. She led him to a breathtaking vista where other dragons soared through the sky. Turning to him with a warm smile, she welcomed him to his partner's homeland, the Dragon Nation. Having arrived in the land of dragons, Raid looked on with wide-eyed wonder. Luna, in her elf form, gestured expansively, welcoming him to her home as other dragons watched them with intense curiosity. The sight prompted one of the dragons to roar in astonishment, announcing to everyone that the princess had brought back a human man. The other dragons began to murmur amongst themselves, recognizing Raid as the one from the princess's stories and noting their apparent closeness. A slightly flustered Luna urged them to stop as she led him toward a large stone entrance. Inside, the cavern was dark. A deep voice noted that Luna had returned safely. Raid, standing beside her, formally announced his own return to the figure he addressed as Father, whose shadowy form observed him from the depths. The shadowy figure was revealed to be a colossal white dragon, whose overwhelming presence left Raid momentarily breathless. The great beast welcomed him, identifying himself as Alburn, the Dragon King and ruler of this land. He acknowledged Raid as both a descendant of the Dragon Tamers and the savior of his daughter. The Dragon King continued, telling Raid he could relax. He stated that he could not overlook someone who had healed his daughter's illness and tended to the sky dragons in the Empire. Kneeling respectfully, Raid introduced himself as Raid Dryson and thanked the king for sheltering him, assuming he already knew the circumstances. He dismissed the formalities, deciding it was enough of the stiff preamble. Alburn declared that, for now, Raid should rest, and gestured for Luna to lead the way. But before departing, Raid hesitated. He looked up at the massive creature and, with a tone of deep reverence, asked the Dragon King for permission to touch his scales. He reached out his hand as Luna questioned his strange request. Alburn, however, remained calm and gave his consent. With a quiet word of thanks, Raid gently placed his hand upon the Dragon King's scaled hide. As his gloved fingers made contact, a soft light emanated from the point of contact on the scales. Luna watched, her eyes wide with utter astonishment. She watched in amazement as her father's scales began to regain their brilliant shine. The young man responsible for the change explained his reasoning. He told the Dragon King that he had noticed his scales lacked the luster of other elder dragons, leading him to suspect a poor flow of magic, and acknowledged that Alburn had seen through his intentions. As a result of his touch, the Dragon King's entire body now shimmered with renewed vitality. The great dragon expressed his gratitude, explaining that he had been far from idle and had little time to rest his body. Luna, looking on with a gentle smile, added that such a result was only natural, given that Raid was under her care. He replied that her words made him happy, as this was simply the duty of a dragon tamer. Luna, however, was still in awe, reflecting on the incredible power required to heal an elder dragon's body, a feat that seemed almost ordinary for Raid. Her contemplation suddenly shifted to a stark realization, her expression turning to one of shock. She confessed that back in the Empire, she had been called a salary thief. The term left Raid utterly perplexed. She clenched her fists, her voice filled with newfound conviction. The Empire, she declared, had undoubtedly and severely underestimated Raid's true power. As they began to walk away from the Dragon King, her indignation grew. She couldn't comprehend what the Empire's leadership could have possibly been thinking, certain that no tamer was more capable than Raid. The pair continued their stroll through the valley, a sanctuary surrounded by high cliffs and populated by numerous other dragons. The resident dragons watched them pass, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and quiet contemplation. Luna, in her elven form, gestures to their surroundings and tells Raid this will be his new place to live. He looks on with a gentle expression, wishing he could have provided such a spacious life for Fae and the sky dragons as well. Following her gesture, his gaze falls upon a breathtaking sight, a colossal tree so massive that an entire village of wooden houses and platforms has been built among its branches. The two of them stand at its base, dwarfed by its immense scale. He climbs a long ladder, ascending the trunk, his face alight with wonder. Amazed by the sheer number of small houses, he asks Luna if other races besides the elder dragons live in this country. As he steps onto a wooden platform, he sees them, several people with distinct feline ears and tails. He recognizes them immediately as the Cat Spirit Tribe. Luna explains that the Cat Spirit Tribe are a mysterious race of beast folk who are close to spirits. She elaborates that while they are known for their explosive physical strength, they are unable to use magic. He processes this new information, recalling that he had heard the tribe had already gone extinct. Luna calls out to him, but he seems lost in thought. Suddenly, a cheerful young girl from the tribe, with a flower in her hair, waves at them enthusiastically. She smiles brightly and asks what brings them to the village today. Her sudden, energetic greeting catches Raid off guard. The girl stands before him and Luna, her tail twitching with curiosity as she awaits their answer. The girl's eyes light up with excitement as she realizes who Raid is, exclaiming that there's a human here. Luna places a hand on Raid's arm, introducing him as the one she had told her about before. Beaming, the girl introduces herself as Roanna and gives him a warm welcome. She explains to Luna that she had already figured the dragon's nest would be too difficult for a human to rest in, so she has arranged for Raid to live in their settlement starting today. She cheerfully calls out to Raid, addressing him as Big Brother, which startles him. He stammers, questioning the new title, but she simply asks if he is okay. He reassures her that he's fine, just caught off guard. He recovers quickly, shaking her hand and telling her he looks forward to being with her from now on. Roanna agrees enthusiastically. As she looks down, a thoughtful expression on her face, he senses something is amiss and asks if anything is wrong. Instead of answering his question, Roanna's eyes widen in amazement. She exclaims that he smells of all sorts of dragons, perhaps 100 different kinds. Raid confirms he cared for the sky dragons by himself, which prompts a satisfied thought from Luna, who feels her judgment of him was correct. This revelation leads Raid to a sudden understanding. The boost to a tamed target's magic and physical abilities must function even over great distances. Luna confirms his theory, explaining that it's no wonder her own power has grown so much over the past 3 years, since that's all he ever talks about. As they speak, Roanna listens intently. She murmurs to herself, realizing that if Luna's power grew because of the taming, then perhaps she could also become stronger if Raid tamed her. Nearby, Raid's hand tightens into a fist. Her quiet thought erupts into a sudden plea. She turns to Raid and shouts a request to be tamed, declaring her desire to become stronger. A stunned Raid questions her, but she insists it's fine. She explains that her tribe can judge a person's character by their scent, and she can tell he is not a bad person, even acknowledging that being tamed means she would be bound to obey his every command. Overwhelmed by her intensity as she continues to plead, Raid turns to Luna for an explanation. He asks why this child is so desperate for strength. Luna's expression turns somber as she reveals the truth. The Cat Spirit Tribe was driven from their homeland by a recent surge of monsters, forcing them to flee to the land of dragons simply to survive. Roanna confirms Luna's words with a passionate cry. She declares that this is precisely why she longs for the strength to reclaim her homeland, dedicating all her days to training. Her determination is plain to see as she stands resolute, carrying the burden of her entire race. Watching her, Raid understands her desperation. If a path to quick strength presented itself, it's only natural she would seize it. Still, a part of him thinks she should be more cautious. Having considered her plea, Raid turns to face both Roanna and Luna. He states that he understands the situation. While he is a dragon tamer, he warns Roanna that he can't guarantee he'll be able to tame her, and she must accept that risk. Without hesitation, she agrees to his terms. He smiled, admitting that her phrasing made him want to succeed. Roanna grinned back, confidently stating that compared to caring for 100 dragons, she should be quite easy to handle. With their agreement made, he stood opposite Roanna within a large chamber. He commanded a magic circle to unfold across the floor and released his power, beginning the taming ritual. As the magic swelled, both he and Roanna closed their eyes, focusing intently. The process required them to align their very life wavelengths. A brilliant flash of light erupted from the circle, signaling the moment of connection. Within the ethereal light, he began the incantation to form their bond, declaring that her blood would be his blood, and her functions would become his own. He concluded the ritual, sealing the unbreakable contract. As he spoke the final words, a collar of pure magical energy materialized around Roanna's neck. With the taming complete, he asked how she felt. Roanna touched her neck in surprise before clenching her fists, confirming that she could feel power surging up inside her. Eager to test her newfound strength, she declared she would try it out and walk towards a thick wooden post. He watched, noting with some concern that the branch was as thick as his own arm. In a flash, she struck the post, shattering the thick wood with a single, effortless blow. The display of power left Luna amazed. Raid, however, was completely speechless, his face frozen in shock at the incredible result. Roanna gazes at her hand, a look of pure wonder on her face as she feels the surge of newfound energy. She whispers to herself, finally comprehending the scale of her own power. She turns to Raid, her eyes sparkling with admiration. She exclaims that she was right all along. He is no ordinary person. Her enthusiasm unabated, she asks him to train with her whenever he has a free moment, declaring her desire to grow even stronger. Luna observes their exchange from short distance away. Far away, within a detached palace of the Lazaria Empire, the Emperor sits on his throne, listening to a dire report. Two of his men frantically inform him that since the recent rampage, the Sky Dragons have become completely disobedient to the Dragon Knights. They warn that the Empire's borders are now vulnerable to monster attacks. The Emperor clenches his teeth in frustration, muttering that he is well aware of the situation. As he fumes, his advisor steps forward, offering a suggestion with a thin smile. He points out that since Raid's body was never recovered, this should operate under the assumption that he is still alive. The advisor elaborates, reminding the Emperor that the Sky Dragons only became uncontrollable after Raid. The one who possessed the unique skill to communicate with them had deserted the Empire. He suggests they bring Raid back and use him to silence the dragons. He then leans in, questioning with a sly expression whether His Majesty actually believes the nonsense about Raid being able to speak with dragons. The Emperor falls into thought. The advisor presses his point, suggesting that once Raid has pacified the dragons, they can re-establish control themselves, effectively cutting Raid out of the picture. A spark of understanding lights up in the Emperor's eyes. Having made his decision, the Emperor bellows his command to the guards. He orders them to find Raid and drag the salary thief back to the Empire, where he will be forced to work off every coin he was paid. As he gives the order, a malicious grin spreads across his face, privately stewing over the fact that Raid had forced him to bow his head, even if it was only for appearances. As the Emperor's malice brews from afar, Raid remains oblivious, gently patting a smiling Rowena on the head. But a dark thought crosses his mind, a vow that as payment for his past suffering, he will one day take the Emperor's head. In a land of dragons, Raid gradually grows accustomed to his new life, living among the great beasts and the members of the cat spirit tribe. He kneels before a glowing bottle placed on the ground, a potion of his own making, as the others look on. Taking the potion, he climbs onto the back of a large, injured dragon, warning the creature that the medicine will sting a little, but to bear with it. As he pours the liquid onto the wound, the elder dragon lets out a pained grunt, flinching from the sharp sensation. After the treatment, members of the cat spirit tribe gather to thank him. They explain that their people channel most of their mana into physical enhancement, making potion brewing a struggle. They offer the potion as a small token of thanks for the food, clothing, and shelter he has provided. Rowena beams, confident that with Big Brother Raid around, the dragons will be safe. Luna, watching them, reflects on how long it has been since her own efforts were recognized. Overcome with emotion, she grabs Raid's hands, earnestly pleading that she truly wants to live in this country forever. Her eyes shine as she promises that they, too, will be able to lend him their strength. Raid meets her gaze, his own expression filled with a new resolve. He looks down at their joined hands, a soft smile forming on his face. He realizes with certainty that Luna is his partner, and that he should seriously consider settling down here for good. Later, as they gaze over the landscape, Luna's demeanor turns serious. She informs him that monsters have grown more active lately, closing in on the Dragon Nation. Raid confirms her fears, admitting that this development is precisely what troubles him. His thoughts are interrupted by the voice of the elder dragon he had treated. The dragon thanks him again for the potions, dismissing its wounds as mere scratches. However, it adds a grave warning. Monsters drawing near the elder dragons is something that has never happened before, and it is a deeply worrying sign. Raid listens, his concern deepening. He considered his debt to the Dragon Nation, resolving that he wanted to do more to help its people. With a confident smile, he announced his plan. He would personally tame every large monster in the vicinity. His declaration was met with stunned silence from both Luna and Rowena. True to his word, he led Luna into the forest, where they soon encountered a massive, winged creature resting in a clearing. Luna could only utter a sound of disbelief. The beast, a griffin, turned its head, its sharp eyes glaring with hostility. Luna, now joined by Rowena, questioned his seriousness about taming all the monsters. Rowena voiced her own doubts, explaining that taming beasts was nothing like fighting them, and powerful creatures like griffins could repel taming spells with their strong magic. He dismissed their concerns with a calm smile, telling them not to worry, and to simply watch as he began to walk toward the creature. The dragon tamer advanced steadily, his cloak billowing slightly as the griffin fixed its predatory gaze upon it. Before the beast could react, he thrust his hand forward, a glowing magical sigil materializing in the air. He declared that it was too late for it to flee. He invoked his sealing art, unleashing the dragon binding chains. Luminous shackles erupted from the sigil, instantly ensnaring the griffin's leg. He completes the incantation, declaring his intent to form a bond with the creature. He proclaims that its blood shall be his blood, its strength his strength, as the magical chains surge forward and envelop the griffin. The chains of light coalesce around the griffin's neck, forming a glowing collar as he seals the unbreakable contract, here and now. With the contract sealed, the light fades, and the once hostile griffin becomes docile. It gently nuzzles against Raid's hand, a soft sound of contentment escaping its beak as it stands calmly beside him. He turns and calls out that the taming was a success, telling his companions they can emerge. From their hiding spot in the woods, Luna and Rowena appear. Luna is stunned, thinking to herself that he tamed a griffin with ease, like a dragon tamer straight out of legend. Her shock deepens when he casually mentions that he tamed plenty of griffins during his training. The revelation leaves her utterly speechless. She confronts him, calling his actions reckless, since even elder dragons struggle with such monsters. She asks what he plans to do now. Drive it away? He calmly replies that he will not. His simple denial prompts a confused Rowena to question him further. Raid explains his decision. He will order the griffin not to oppose the Dragon Nation. Still not understanding, she asks what the point of taming it is then. He clarifies that monsters like griffins establish a territory, and other monsters instinctively avoid entering those areas. The implication of his words dawns on Luna, who realizes that if the griffin becomes an ally, it will guard the entire region for them. Seeing her understanding, Raid decides that if the creature is going to live there, it will need a name. He looks at the majestic beast and declares its name, Fawn. In response, the griffin spreads its wings and lets out a powerful cry, as if accepting its new identity. The newly named creature, Fawn, takes to the sky. Raid calls out to it, formally introducing himself. With his first guardian secured, he turns to his companions, Luna and Rowena, who cheer in support. He declares his ambitious plan, to tame every large monster near the Dragon Nation in the same manner. He made good on his word with remarkable speed. By resting between battles, Raid managed to tame 20 large monsters in just half a day. With these powerful creatures now patrolling the borders, the threat of other monsters encroaching upon the Dragon Nation was almost completely eliminated. For this monumental achievement, the Dragon King granted him a reward beyond measure. Raid was bestowed with a vast collection of treasure, a monthly salary of 100 gold coins, and what could only be described as an incredible fortune. In the streets of the Lazarian capital, citizens murmur amongst themselves as Imperial sky dragons patrol overhead. The recent dismissal of the dragon caretaker from the Imperial court is the topic of conversation, with many connecting his absence to the increasing proximity of monsters to the city. The discontent spreads even to the military. Within a tavern, two knights lament the state of their forces. They note that the sky dragons, controlled by forceful techniques, are nearing their breaking point. Compounding the issue, their supply of healing potions is dwindling, a problem they never faced when Raid was present. Elsewhere, an alchemist holds up a vial, astonished by its contents. He declares it a healing potion of a quality he cannot replicate, something so advanced he's never seen its like. He realizes with a shock that it must have been crafted by the exiled dragon caretaker, sensing that storm clouds are gathering over the kingdom. The source of this turmoil, the Emperor of Lazaria, seethes in his throne room. His face is a mask of frustration as he is forced to acknowledge, if only to himself, that the previous caretaker was exceptionally skilled. His brooding is cut short as an Imperial guard bursts into the chamber. The guard brings urgent news. They have found Raid's location. According to traveler testimony, Raid has headed into an unexplored region. He erupts with a malicious grin, a sense of triumph washing over him. Finally, he declares, ordering his carriage to be prepared. He announces his intention to personally lead the effort to capture the one he now calls a salary thief. His thoughts race with cruel intentions. He plans to extract everything from Raid, his healing potion recipes and his dragon control techniques, before executing him on some trumped-up charge. He vows into the open air, convinced of his victory, roaring that Raid will not escape his grasp. Meanwhile, far away, the target of this Imperial fury receives the news. Raid stands calmly in a workshop filled with potions, Rowena and a dragon visible behind him. He turns, holding a vial, and asks for confirmation. So, the Emperor and his men are coming to capture me. Luna, in her elven form, provides the answer. With a serious expression, she explains that the Imperial sky dragons told them everything with their roars, leaving no room for doubt. She contemplated the Emperor's brazen move. The Lazarian Empire had an ancient pact with the dragons, not to interfere with the unexplored region. She wondered if he would truly ignore a tradition his ancestors had upheld for generations. Her concern was palpable. Raid, believing himself to be the cause of her distress, thanked her for the information, but concluded that he should leave the land of dragons to prevent any more trouble for her and the others. Luna quickly called out for him to wait. Before he could leave, a calm voice advised him not to shoulder this burden alone. A man with long, light-colored hair and a goatee appeared, whom Luna immediately identified as her father. Raid was stunned to realize it was the Dragon King, Alburn, in human form. Alburn then declared Raid an official resident of their country. His declaration was met with immediate support. Rowena shouted that she would help if Raid was in trouble. A nearby dragon added that they owed him a debt, as they were no longer attacked by monsters thanks to him. Alburn addressed the gathered crowd, confirming they all understood the gravity of the situation. Raid was visibly moved by their loyalty. Luna, with a hand to her chest, stated firmly that she could not stand by while the one who saved her life was in danger. Alburn's expression hardened as he made a proclamation. They would repel the divine Dragon Empire. He rallied the assembly of dragons and beast folk, his voice booming as he condemned the foolishness of exiling someone only to then try and forcibly bring them back. In response, the entire crowd let out a unified, deafening roar of agreement. Meanwhile, the Emperor's expedition pressed on. His ornate carriage, flanked by a squadron of dragons, soared through the sky toward the unexplored lands. From within the carriage, a knight commander questioned one of the sky dragons. He noted its sudden compliance with the Dragon Knight's control techniques, remarking that until the day before, the creatures had refused to listen at all. The Emperor of Lazaria, seated nearby, sneered with malicious delight. He He wondered aloud where Raid was hiding, vowing to make him pay dearly for forcing him to travel this far. A pain cry suddenly echoed from outside. The source of the sound was not a dragon. A massive griffin strained against its harnesses, its powerful wings beating as it single-handedly pulled the Emperor's heavy carriage through the air, letting out a furious, pained screech. The creature lunges, its talons tearing through the Emperor's carriage. The monarch cries out in disbelief, stunned to see a griffin in this land. The force of the impact shatters the carriage's axle, sending the vehicle lurching towards the edge of a cliff. The Emperor's eyes widen in sheer terror as the ground gives way beneath him. He is thrown from the plummeting carriage, but before he can fall far, the griffin swoops in and seizes him in its powerful talons. Dangling helplessly, the Emperor screams for his dragon knights to save him from this peril. From their vantage point high above, Raid and his companions observe the outcome. Rowena confirms with Albern that they followed Raid's instructions not to take the Emperor's life. Far below, the griffin lands, its talons releasing the carriage. The monarch lies sprawled on the ground, shaken but unharmed after his terrifying fall. He looks up to see Raid standing over him. The Emperor, now humbled and sweating, stammers that he wishes to apologize and begs Raid to come back to the Empire with him. Raid listens for a moment before coldly declining the offer. His mind flashes back to the day of his dismissal. He remembers the Emperor's words, accusing him of false reports and neglect of duty. He had been fired, sentenced not to death, but to exile, forever banished from the Empire. The memory fuels his resolve. His expression hardens as he declares with finality that no matter how the Emperor phrases the request, he will never serve him again. His refusal sends the Emperor into a rage. Pointing a trembling finger, the monarch bellows for his dragon knights to kill the insolent fool. The knights surge forward, but their path is immediately blocked by the dragons of the land. As the controlled sky dragons are freed from their restraints, Albern gives the command for all to join the effort. As they face the Imperial forces, a strange, geometric pattern flared to life within one of the dragon's eyes. The sight caused a bead of sweat to run down the Emperor's face. He was utterly surrounded. Dragons of all kinds, wyverns, drakes, and ancient beasts, had gathered, their collective presence a formidable and terrifying wall of scales and teeth. Their low, guttural growls rumbled through the clearing, a clear and unified threat directed at the monarch. Panicked, the Emperor shouted at Raid to stop them immediately, declaring that resisting his will was an act of clear treason. His accusation was met not with fear, but with a serene smile. Raid calmly pointed out that since he had been exiled from the Empire, he was no longer an Imperial subject, making the term treason inappropriate. The Emperor was left speechless by this logic. His shock turned to terror as the colossal form of Luna, the ancient white dragon, loomed over him. Sensing her protective fury, Raid gently placed a hand on her snout, reassuring her that he was fine and asking her to calm down. At his touch and gentle words, the ancient dragon's aggression subsided. Witnessing this, the Emperor's demeanor shifted to desperate command. Confirming that Raid could indeed speak to dragons, he ordered him to make them all accept the Dragon Knight's orders and serve the Empire. He threatened that if Raid refused, Imperial subjects would be devoured by approaching monsters. Raid was left to ponder this difficult choice, not wanting to obey, but also not wanting the people to suffer. He turned to Faye and the others, relaying the Emperor's demand and asking for their opinion. Faye considered the proposition, replying that they did not mind protecting humans. It was something they'd been doing for a very long time. Raid reflected on their gentle nature, thinking how kind Faye and the others were to even consider it. However, he voiced his own conclusion aloud, declaring that they could not stand to obey the current Emperor. He knew that if they were subjected to the same treatment as before, the dragons would only be overworked to the point of illness once more. He turns back to the Emperor, who is still mounted on his dragon, and offers a counter-proposal. He lays out his terms. He will propose improved treatment plans for the Imperial Sky Dragons, which the Emperor must accept in their entirety. Furthermore, the Emperor must promise never to target him or interfere with the unexplored region again. The Emperor scoffs at the demands, dismissing Raid as a mere salary thief from whom he would never take orders. In response to the Emperor's arrogant refusal, a blinding flash of light erupts from the ground nearby, followed by a powerful explosion. The force of the blast throws the Emperor from his mount, leaving him coughing and dazed on the edge of a newly formed, smoking crater. As he looks up, a figure materializes before him inside a glowing magical seal. A horrifying memory surfaces, a depiction of a silver ancient dragon that could take human form, and the Emperor realizes with dawning terror who he might be facing. The figure's face comes into focus, revealing piercing, reptilian eyes. He introduces himself as Dragon King Albern. He reminds the Emperor of a pact made long ago with the Emperor of the Divine Dragon Empire, a pact the current ruler has now broken by sending troops into his sacred lands. He continues his admonishment, the colossal form of his true dragon self looming behind him. Albern states plainly that if Raid had not intervened to stop him, the Emperor would have been reduced to nothing but dust. The Emperor's composure completely shatters, and he breaks down into terrified, unrestrained sobs. Sometime after the confrontation, a new agreement is reached. Raid rides away from the forest alongside the now humbled Emperor and Rowena, having successfully negotiated improved treatment plans for the sky dragons. He later discusses the terms with Luna, who thanks him for his help. The new conditions limit the number of breath attacks that strain the dragons' bodies and mandate an increase in their meals and rest periods. He walks away with Luna, telling the assembled members of the cat spirit tribe not to be so formal. He insists that their success was thanks to everyone in the dragon country and to Luna. Behind them, Roanna expresses her disappointment, having wanted to join the battle herself. As he walks, he reflects internally, relieved that Roanna and the others didn't reveal themselves. He knows it would have caused significant trouble if the Emperor had seen the rare cat spirit tribe. He looks ahead with a newfound sense of confidence, realizing that now, he will no longer be pursued by the Empire. Elsewhere, on the paved streets of a quiet town, a new presence makes itself known. The sound of light, deliberate footsteps echoes on the stone. The source of the sound is a young girl, from whose lips float a series of shimmering, ethereal bubbles. Clad in a white, hooded cloak, the mysterious girl runs purposefully down a long, stone corridor, leaving a trail of bubbles in her wake. In the snowy northern region of the Dragon Country lies the Igiru Kingdom. From a high vantage point, Raid and Luna, in her dragon form, gaze down at the royal capital. Raid announces that they are almost there. He decides it would be best to proceed on foot to avoid drawing unwanted attention, reasoning that the presence of ancient dragons and cat spirits might cause a commotion. Luna, perched behind him, understands and agrees. With a gentle landing in a snow-covered forest, Luna begins her transformation. A magical circle glows beneath her feet as she shifts into her humanoid form. She immediately shivers, letting out a small sneeze. In her human form, she finds the cold much more intense than she had imagined. Seeing her discomfort, Raid offers her a warm garment, telling her to take it. Luna looks up, surprised, and mentions that she had already borrowed some extra clothes from the cat spirits. Several days after the Emperor's attack, the group, now including Roanna, walks together. Luna, now wearing the cloak Raid gave her, smiles warmly and thanks him, saying she feels much better. Their journey continues through the snowy woods. They are heading to Falca, the royal capital of the Igiru Kingdom, with the goal of purchasing ingredients to make potions. Roanna, full of energy, exclaims how excited she is. Luna gently cautions her, reminding Roanna not to get too carried away. She explains that as tamed beings, their purpose is to accompany and protect Raid. Roanna cheerfully agrees, though Luna privately thinks that their reasons for coming are not simply to play with Raid. Soon after, the trio arrives at the large stone gates of the capital city. Inside, they find a lively city. Luna remarks on the bustling atmosphere, while Roanna points to a large, feathered beast, asking Raid if such monsters are allowed. Raid explains that it's a Simurgh, a creature resistant to cold that supports the kingdom. He adds that he learned this during previous work for the Empire, impressing Roanna with his knowledge. He notices Luna's flushed expression as she apologizes, having been distracted by a delicious aroma from a nearby food stall. He points out that they are selling grilled skewers. He approaches the vendor and orders 3 pork skewers with sauce, calling back to Luna and Roanna that he's getting them some. Luna takes a bite and her eyes widen in delight. She remarks to Raid that it's a delicious flavor they don't have in the Dragon Country, while Roanna agrees that the strong seasoning is quite addictive. After finishing their snack, Raid announces that they should finish their shopping before it gets dark. The trio then moves through the bustling market, examining various goods from different stalls as they gather the ingredients they need. Carrying several bags filled with their purchases, Raid comments that they bought quite a lot. As they walk down a narrower street, a small, hooded figure darts out from an alleyway. The hooded child collides with him, and as the hood falls back, he is startled to see a young elf girl. His eyes are drawn to the metal collar around her neck. He recalls that in the Igiru Kingdom, mages and criminals are often enslaved. Her face etched with desperation, the young elf clutches the collar and pleads with the group to hide her. Before he can respond, a voice shouts from the end of the alley, ordering the little brat not to escape. 2 men have appeared, blocking their path. Trapped, Roanna turns to Raid and asks if they should help the girl. He agrees, observing the menacing look on the approaching men's faces and concluding that nothing good would come from handing her over. He thrusts his hand forward, deploying a magic circle on the ground. With a surge of power, he calls forth 2 Simurghs, commanding them to drive the pursuers away. The summoned creatures' eyes snap open, alert and ready. With a great whoosh of their wings, the birds take flight, startling the 2 men. Roanna sees their chance, urging the group to move while the pursuers are distracted. As the Simurghs dive towards the fleeing men, he watches with satisfaction, realizing this method will leave no evidence of his control. He then releases his hold on the creatures. Having escaped the alley, the rescued girl looks up at him in surprise. She asks if dragon knights are capable of controlling creatures other than dragons. She continues, noting that the woman beside him is an ancient dragon, and wonders aloud if her sharp intuition is a racial trait. Raid confirms Luna's identity, but is puzzled by her line of questioning. As they walk through the snowy town, he cheerfully corrects her misconception. He explains that he is not a dragon knight, but a dragon caretaker. Leaving the scene of the confrontation far behind, the group proceeds down a wider street, observed by a pair of locals. The girl then explains her reasoning. She had heard that when in trouble, one should seek help from dragon knights, which is why she approached him. Raid nods, understanding now. She pulls back her hood, revealing her face fully. She introduces herself as Milie and clarifies that while she is often mistaken for an elf, she is actually a water spirit. The revelation stuns Raid. She meets Raid's skepticism with a steady gaze. He remarks that he'd heard water spirits were extinct, just like the cat spirits. Unfazed, she promises to provide proof. To prove her claim, she cups her hands, and a shimmering sphere of pure water materializes between them. Raid stares in awe, realizing she has summoned it without a magic circle. An act of true magic, not sorcery. This display highlights a fundamental difference. Sorcery requires a magic circle as a blueprint and consumes power, whereas magic uses a mental image to manipulate power directly, resulting in no loss. This rare ability is typically exclusive to beings intrinsically linked to nature, such as spirits. The implications of this ability are clear. Milie is a genuine spirit. After a belated introduction where Raid presents himself, Luna, and Roanna, Luna's focus sharpens on a critical question. Why is a spirit enslaved in the Igura kingdom? Raid's gaze falls upon the collar around Milfie's neck as the pieces click into place. She explains that she was kidnapped about a year ago by the very men they had just driven off. Hearing her explanation, Luna concludes that it's logical for a member of a rare spirit race to be targeted for kidnapping. She surmises that Milie must have been desperately fleeing until she encountered their group. With the situation understood, the group discusses their next move. Roanna advocates for helping Milie, sensing a purity beneath her stagnant scent. Raid suggests sheltering her in the Dragon Country, and Luna agrees that flying there would ensure their pursuers couldn't follow. As they deliberate, Milie makes a heartfelt plea for them to take her with them, revealing that she has no one left to return to. Seeing her desperation, Raid assures her not to worry. He states that the only remaining problem is the slave collar, and he has an idea. He warns her that his idea might be unpleasant, but Milie readily agrees to do anything if it means the collar can be removed. With her consent, Raid begins deploying a magic circle on the ground and releasing a wave of his power. As his power flows from the circle, he explains his plan. Both taming and slave collars demand absolute obedience. Therefore, if he uses a taming spell with magic stronger than the collars, he can forcibly rewrite her master to be himself. He begins an incantation for an unbreakable contract, and as his power surges, the metal collar on Milfie's neck begins to crack. He grits his teeth, realizing he still lacks sufficient magical power. The strain of the spell causes him to cry out as raw energy crackles around his hands. He steels his resolve, remembering the immense effort it took to tame an ancient dragon. This, by comparison, should be a far simpler task. With a final surge of will, he declares that a mere slave collar is nothing. A chain of light forms around Milie, crackling with overwhelming power. The concentrated energy slams into the collar, causing the batwing insignia on its front to fracture under the intense pressure. The device shudders violently around her neck as the magical bonds holding it together begin to fail completely. With a final, sharp crack, the collar breaks apart and clatters uselessly to the ground. Moments later, a woman in the street marvels at the idea of a dragon tamer who can control ancient dragons. Milie, now free, touches her neck with a blush. Elsewhere, one of their pursuers shouts for the search to begin. He warns his partner not to underestimate them, just because they are children, insisting they can't have gotten far yet. As the pursuers close in, Roanna asks why they don't simply fly away. Raid dismisses the idea, instead instructing Luna to take Roanna and Milie ahead while he stays behind to stop their trackers. Luna, transforming into her massive dragon form, acknowledges that it will be conspicuous but agrees that it's unavoidable. Raid smiles, confirming his agreement. The pursuers spotted their quarry just as they were making their escape. One man cursed, identifying Raid as a dragon knight, and realizing with frustration that they would be impossible to chase once they took to the sky. Moments before, the chase had been frantic. As Raid ran through an alleyway, carrying Milie, with Roanna close behind, one of the men shouted for the little brats to wait. Roanna, however, had no intention of stopping. She turned with a fierce grin, hoisting a large wooden log and shouting for them to take it. With a powerful heave, she threw the log, which crashed into the ground directly in the pursuer's path, throwing them off balance and halting their advance. The makeshift barrier bought them the time they needed. Now soaring high above the town on Luna's back, Raid looked down at the fuming men below and muttered a curse, relieved but still tense from the escape. As they flew through the clouds, Luna declared the trip a success. She noted with satisfaction that they had finished their shopping and also managed to save Milie. Raid, however, was more worried about the consequences. He hoped aloud that the Dragon King wouldn't be angry about them bringing Milie along without permission, reasoning that the king is a compassionate father figure who helps those in need. His words seemed to trouble Milie. She trembled, calling herself useless as a spirit and pathetic for being captured. Raid immediately interjected, insisting that what she said was not true. As a fellow rare race, he was sure the Dragon King would welcome her. He looked at her with a gentle, reassuring expression. He told her that everyone is weak at first, and that she could definitely become stronger from now on. He concluded his promise, stating that even he, a mere dragon caretaker, would help her. Touched by his sincerity, Milie could only look up at him and whisper his name. She leans against Raid, explaining that as a spirit, she feels better with more magic power around, and asks him to keep the taming spell active. He is taken aback, Realizing he had forgotten to release it, he agrees to her request. From ahead, Luna calls his name, confirming that she understands the situation and will keep the spell active as well. Her tone then shifts to one of urgency. She warns him that a horde of monsters is approaching the dragon country, causing his eyes to widen in alarm. He processes the dire news, which the ancient dragons have conveyed through their roars across the land. The leader of this horde claims to be one of the 4 heavenly kings of the Demon King's army. The name strikes a chord within him. He recalls the legends. The 4 heavenly kings are the Demon King's most elite subordinates, the very same who once rampaged across the continent and brought it to the edge of ruin. The realization that they are not mere myths sinks in. As he contemplates this, Luna adds that the Dragon King, and even his own father, may have suspected the Demon King's revival was near, given the recent surge in monster activity. Nearby, Roanna's expression hardens with resolve. She grabs on Raid's arm, declaring that she's going with them to help. At the same time, Milie quietly insists that she wants to remain by his side, leaving him caught between their 2 earnest requests. He internally weighs his options. While it would be safer to leave Milie in the cat spirit village, he worries what might happen in his absence. He concludes it might be easier to protect her if she stays with him. Having made his decision, he thanks Luna for her support and suggests a plan. They will circle around the approaching horde from behind to assess the situation before deciding on a strategy. Luna agrees that it sounds like a good course of action. He raised the binoculars to his eyes, confirming their worst fears. Below, a massive horde of monsters marched relentlessly forward. Ogres, wyverns, and other foul beasts, a veritable army on the move. Beside him, Luna watched the approaching tide with a grim expression. Their observation was cut short by a sudden, confident voice. A woman with fiery hair and a sharp-toothed grin appeared before them, announcing herself as one of the 4 heavenly kings of the Demon King's army, Eru of the explosive flame. She pointed a finger at the group, her smile unwavering as she laid out her terms. She demanded they immediately hand over the water spirit they had taken from the Igiru kingdom. If they complied, she promised them a merciful, painless death. Raid and Milie could only stare, stunned by the sudden confrontation. Her threat hung in the air, punctuated by a confident, knowing smirk. A truly formidable enemy had appeared before them. Before a massive horde of monstrous creatures, a woman with reddish-orange hair and small wings by her ears announces her identity with a sharp-toothed grin. She is Eru of the explosive flame, one of the 4 heavenly kings of the Demon King's army. Her voice carries a clear ultimatum to Raid and Milie. Hand over the water spirit taken from the Igiru kingdom immediately. If they comply, she promises them a merciful death, allowing them to scatter without feeling any pain. Raid's gaze falls upon 2 small, shimmering piles on the ground as he processes the demand. He realizes with dawning concern that Milie must be their target. Beside him, Luna, in her dragon form, confirms his suspicion. Unaware of their discovery, Eru observes them from a distance, noting to herself that they have not yet noticed her presence. But Raid is already formulating a counterattack. He instructs Luna to use the opening he will create by restraining the horde with a long-range sealing technique to blast Eru with her breath. With the plan set, he asks if she is ready. Sometime later, inside a quiet room, Roanna reflects on the recent battle. Looking away from a stack of empty bowls, she remarks on how anticlimactic the confrontation with one of the Demon Kings for Heavenly Kings turned out to be. Lying down nearby, Luna agrees, admitting she had wanted to defeat them herself. However, the fight was over in an instant, thanks to Raid's chains and her own breath attack. Milie adds that taking them by surprise was key, which also allowed them to handle the gathered horde of monsters. Raid listens, pleased with the outcome. The conversation then shifts to their captive. Roanna asks what they plan to do with Eru, who is now confined to a cage. Raid explains that they have no choice but to keep her bound with the sealing technique for a while, as they cannot predict what she might do if set free. Later that night, Raid sits on the edge of a bed where Roanna and Milie are sleeping. Luna, in her elf form, embraces him tightly from behind. He asks, somewhat exasperated, if she really intends to sleep in his room. She confirms that she does, claiming it is to keep indecent individuals away. He becomes flustered, thinking to himself that for a healthy man, this situation is far too difficult to handle. He glances toward his sleeping companions, wishing he could ask them to intervene with Luna, but they are sound asleep. He lay awake, watching as Roanna and Milie slept soundly beside him, a rare moment of peace in the small room. Despite the quiet, his mind raced. With Luna on his other side, sleep was an impossibility. Elsewhere, in a cold, stone dungeon, the captured Eru sat in chains. A skeletal figure in a dark robe approached, its scythe held ready. Suddenly, a jolt ran through Raid. He shot upright in bed as a vision of shattering chains flashed through his consciousness. His sudden movement woke the others. Milie, her eyes wide with terror, pointed towards a distant plume of smoke. She stammered that the place was terrible, begging Raid not to go. He knew instantly what she meant. With a determined look, he instructed Roanna to take care of Milie. Without another word, he and Luna rushed out, racing towards the source of the disturbance. They arrived to find 2 skeletal mages maintaining a spell, chanting about their sealing technique, dragon binding chains. As the mages lunged, Raid raised his hand, a magical sigil glowing as he prepared to counter. Before he could act, the skeletal figures collapsed. One of them had noticed the collar on Eru's neck, realizing too late that it was the source of the problem. With a deafening crash, the magical chain shattered. Eru rose amidst a torrent of explosive energy, laughing maniacally. "I have revived," she declared, as Rage shielded himself from the blast. He and Luna stood their ground as Eru calmly explained her escape. She revealed that she had a Dark Reaper remove her sealing technique, admitting it was a challenge to slip past the watchful eyes of the ancient dragons. In response to her boast, Luna shifted back into her true dragon form. Eru dismissed the transformation with a smirk, calling it nonsense, and adding that she had already blown the skeletal mages away with her explosive flames. The great dragon roared, a ball of energy gathering in her maw. She bellowed that Eru would pay with her own body for the barbaric act of burning her brethren and their homes. She unleashed the powerful blast, but Eru simply raised a hand. A shimmering sphere of energy formed around her, effortlessly deflecting the attack. The sphere solidified, trapping Luna inside. Raid watched in shock, crying out her name as the dragon struggled within the magical prison. He could only watch as Eru taunted the trapped dragon princess, telling her it was useless to struggle. She explained that the flame cage was designed to prevent any magical power from escaping to the outside, a revelation that left Luna stunned. The implication struck Raid with force. Eru could activate a flame cage so powerful that even Luna's breath was ineffective, and she had done so without the need for a magic circle. Her attention now shifted to him. With crackling energy gathering in her hands, she declared that this was the true power of one of the 4 heavenly kings, even when caught off guard. She then announced that it was now the human's turn. She rose into the air and unleashed a torrent of fire that swept across the ground toward him, roaring that he would regret the disrespect of ever restraining her within his explosive flames. As the inferno rushed towards him, a look of terror crossed his face. From within her prison, Luna cried out his name in warning. At that moment, a glowing magic circle materialized on his chest. He now holds the source of the protective magic in his hand, a dragon tamer's sealing technique, capable of nullifying even the power of ancient dragons. Eru stares in disbelief, questioning how a mere human could counter her flames. From her cage, Luna cries out his name. Impressed, Eru acknowledges his strength and promises to respond in kind. She vows not to stop until the Demon King is revived, confident that her own magical power is far superior. Seeing him stand his ground, she decides to end the fight with one final technique. In response, he prepares to pour the maximum amount of his own magical power into the sealing art. He leaps into the air, unleashing his ultimate sealing technique, Azure Sky Dragon Encounter. Chains of pure energy erupt from the orb, surging towards a startled Eru. The chains of light coil around her arm, absorbing her flames before they can fully manifest. She watches in shock as her power is neutralized. He realizes that the ultimate sealing technique designed for fire dragons is just as effective against demons. With her power contained, he demands that she surrender. The word echoes back from Eru, laced with defiance. She snarls, straining with all her might against the magical chains now binding her completely. He realizes with alarm that she is attempting to overpower the sealing art with sheer force of will. He shouts for her to stop, warning that if she continues, she will self-destruct from magical depletion. He makes it clear he has no intention of killing her. His warning is met with a defiant smirk. She declares she would rather be restrained by an enemy twice over than submit. Realizing she won't listen, he decides he must end it himself before she perishes. He charges forward, his fist still glowing with the condensed sealing magic. He throws a decisive punch. Eru's eyes widen in panic as she realizes she cannot fully evade the blow. He unleashes a powerful Divine Dragon Empire combat technique, the dragon-piercing awakening. His fist, wreathed in the energy of binding chains, slams into his opponent. The force of the blow sends a shockwave through Eru, and she cries out as consciousness fades. She collapses onto the grassy field, utterly defeated. Raid stands over her still form, the battle concluded. Afterward, he carries the unconscious Eru as Luna approaches them, her voice filled with concern as she asks if he is all right. Together, they take their captive to the cave where Luna had been imprisoned. Inside the cave, he explains to Luna that he has not only bound Eru with his chains, but has also tamed her to prevent any resistance. He then lays out his conditions to Eru. She must answer his questions honestly. She is forbidden from rampaging or hurting anyone, and the use of magical power is strictly prohibited. To his complete surprise, Eru begins to blush and squirm. She gasps that the sensation of being bound by invisible chains is awakening something new within her. She strikes a provocative pose, questioning what kind of demands he truly intends to make. She insinuates that his talk of taming is just a pretext to force her luscious body to obey his commands. While Eru declares that he may control her body but not her heart, Luna looks on in disgust, remarking that this is just how she acted in the cell. Raid grows anxious, realizing this behavior is a terrible influence for Roanna and Milfy, who are now watching the scene unfold. Roanna suddenly trembles with rage. She shouts that while she understands seducing men is a succubus's nature, she warns Eru to be more lenient. She threatens that the next time Eru tries to seduce her partner, she will pay for the slave collar incident. Her threat is immediately followed by action as she delivers a sharp slap across Eru's face. Raid cries out for her to wait, explaining that he still has things to ask Eru and that this was the very reason he chose to tame her instead of simply sealing her away. He demands to know why Eru sent her subordinates to kidnap Milie. Roanna, still fuming, interjects that she will only forgive Eru if she becomes a slave, though she quickly corrects herself, calling it taming. Eru calmly explains her reasoning. Milie is the last surviving princess of the water spirits, the very ones who sealed her away long ago. Hearing this, Milie expresses her surprise, admitting she was unaware of her royal lineage as her childhood memories are hazy. She clarifies that since Eru is her natural enemy, her actions were merely precautions against being sealed once more. Eru then turns her attention to the young man, remarking that while it's pathetic to be defeated twice by the same opponent, she recognizes his sealing technique is powerful enough to suppress her flames at their full strength. When she addresses him simply as human male, he corrects her, stating his name is Ray. Her eyes widen in realization. She posits that he must be a descendant of the legendary Imperial Dragon Knight who sealed the Demon King long ago, riding an ancestral divine dragon. She suggests that, much like Milie, he might be unaware of his own heritage. Ray can only reply that his parents never told him anything of the sort. He sets aside the speculation about his ancestry, stating that the possibility isn't zero, but there are more pressing matters. He needs information from Eru about the recent increase in monster activity and the Demon King. With a confident smirk, she asks if he truly expects her to answer so easily, referring to the Demon King as their master and the powerful ruler of the underground demon realm. In response to her defiance, he simply sighs, "I get it." Eru is suddenly shocked, realizing her mouth is moving on its own. Forced by his taming power, she reveals that the monsters are agitated because the Demon King's seal has weakened over time, and they're excited by his growing presence. He processes the information. The Demon King, sealed by the Imperial Dragon Knight, is now missing. He recalls the legends that in ancient times, the Demon King possessed enough power to nearly dominate the entire continent. Under the spell's influence, Eru mutters that if she knew his location, she would have gone there herself, prompting a questioning pardon from Luna. He lays out their objective. If the Demon King is reviving, they must find his sealing location and reseal him before the demon race can. He presses Eru for information on the other heavenly kings. She responds that she is unaware of their movements, but knows that two were defeated long ago, meaning only one other remains. She corrects his assumption, stating emphatically that the last of the four heavenly kings is a demon whose power rivals that of the Demon King himself. She warns that if this final king makes a move, even the land of dragons would not be safe. As Raid and Luna absorb this grim news, Eru internally considers it a positive development, believing that with only one skilled fighter like herself remaining, the group should be able to handle an attack. Having gathered the necessary information, he turns to Luna and declares their immediate course of action. They will search for the Demon King's sealing location. Luna agrees, stating she will ask the ancient dragons for their assistance in the search. He stood with his companions as Roanna spoke up, her expression earnest. She apologized for the timing, knowing they were about to embark on a crucial mission, but had a request for her big brother Raid. He prompted her to continue, asking what she needed. Milie added her own thoughts, acknowledging that both she and the entire dragon country had been saved by him, while Raid reflected on how much they all relied on him. The request marked the beginning of a new stage. With a determined look, Roanna finally voiced her plea. She asked if they could come to the homeland of the Cat Spirit tribe, explaining that there was someone there she desperately wanted to help. High above the clouds, Raid and his companions travel onward. He and Luna ride atop Faye, while Roanna, Milie, and Eru are carried by another powerful, red-scale dragon. Their destination is the homeland of the young woman from the Cat Spirit tribe, who formally addresses him as Lord Raid. She bows her head deeply, once again expressing her profound gratitude for his assistance in helping her, Meraria, return home. He replies that he understands the desire to care for one's family. He explains that after taming Eru, he learned of Meraria's wish to reclaim her family's guardian sword to protect her clan from invaders. Meraria alone had been unable to persuade her elder grandfather, so they were now heading to the Cat Spirit tribe's homeland, a place now overrun by demons, to convince the tribe's leader, who had opposed a return. He adds that it was a surprise to him as well that such a formidable group had assembled for this cause. The Red Dragon, Gerard, speaks up, admitting he never thought he'd be coming along. He reasons that if the princess is going, she'll need an escort, and confidently vows not to mess up. Eru scoffs at his boast, remarking that those who talk big are usually the first to fall. She then reassures a worried Milie, explaining that Gerard is like an older brother to the young ancient dragons, which only serves to annoy him. Later, on the ground, Raid walks beside Meraria and asks about the nature of this guardian sword. She explains that it is a vital heirloom, passed down through the generations of the Cat Spirit tribe leader's family. Legend says it once vanquished a giant demon. Her tone darkens as she recounts the invasion. Suddenly, kobolds and minotaurs appeared, then a swarm of other monsters, and even a giant three-headed hydra. They didn't even have a chance to retrieve the sword. She stared at the massive, scaled foot that had crushed her home, a single, dreadful realization forming in her mind. a hydra. The hydra was just one part of the devastation. As the group stood before the ruins, Rowena looked on in horror, whispering that this was her home. Meraria confirmed it was their village, her voice heavy with sorrow. Gerard observed the terrible state of the settlement, while Raid noted that her grandfather and the others seemed to have given up on ever returning. He recalled Meraria's story of that fateful day. When monsters attacked, her father and mother died protecting her. In their final moments, Meraria swore an oath to them that she would one day reclaim everything, the guardian sword and their homeland, and return with her clan, their pride restored. His thoughts drifted to how the village must have been before, a place as beautiful as the Dragon Country, where its people lived peacefully, unthreatened by monsters. The memory was broken by Rowena's impassioned cry to Raid, declaring that Meraria wants to return home with everyone. Her words seemed to ignite a fire in Meraria, who turned to Raid with renewed conviction. She vowed that she would reclaim the guardian sword, proclaiming it would become the power to guide them all. With their purpose clear, Raid asked for the sword's location. Meraria directed them toward the village chief's house, explaining that the blade was stored in a large cavern underground. As they moved, Luna's draconic eyes narrowed. She detected an unfamiliar scent on the wind. Her senses, along with Gerard's, flared in warning. The great red dragon let out a roar, alerting the group that they were coming. The warning came just in time, as a massive torrent of energy erupted directly in their path, engulfing the landscape in a violent blast. From the dissipating energy, 3 figures emerged. Eru cursed, realizing her flames couldn't penetrate their defenses, just as a certain Lord Vasil had predicted. Meraria's eyes widened in recognition as she identified the newcomers. They were the direct subordinates of the Heavenly King, Sword Demon Vasil, his 6 attendants. Raid and Milphie could only stare in shock. They look upon the group, and the spiky-haired demon recognizes one of them immediately. He exclaims that it's Lady Eru, surmising that the monsters Lord Vasil sent to the Water Spirit Village must have successfully broken her seal. As he speaks, Raid recalls that Vasil is a demon whose power rivals even the Demon King, and that these must be his 6 attendants. He then directs his attention to Eru, who stands with her head bowed, and questions why she is accompanying. As Eru begins to sweat, unable to form a response, the demon narrows his eyes, speculating that she must have been taken prisoner. She looks up defiantly, stating that she will exercise her right to remain silent. Watching the exchange, Raid thinks to himself that this particular Heavenly King is utterly hopeless. Meanwhile, the dark-haired demoness addresses Meraria, expressing surprise that any water spirit survived. She coldly confirms that Vasil not only attacked her village with monsters, but also ordered its complete destruction. Meraria's eyes widen in horrified realization as she processes the truth of the demon's words. The demoness continues with a faint smile, explaining that a clan capable of sealing one of the Demon Kings for Heavenly Kings is a nuisance that would obviously be eliminated if left alive. The devastating truth causes Rowena to collapse, weeping over the remains of her clan and declaring their actions unforgivable. Seeing this, Raid discreetly reaches for something behind his back. The 2 attendants begin to glow with power. The spiky-haired demon introduces himself as Goraz the Will-o'-the-Wisp, stating Lord Vasil's orders are to burn everyone except the cat spirit tribe members who came for the sword. His companion, Shiru of the Green Wind, adds that she is sleepy and wants to end things quickly. In an instant, massive, dark chains erupt from the ground, ensnaring the area. Raid watches in alarm as Luna observes that the magical power emanating from the 2 demons exceeds that of an average dragon. Unseen, Raid grips an item in his hand, glad he came prepared. He remained still as the dark magic chains snaked around Eru's leg, binding her tightly. She let out a cry of surprise and pain, while Goraz, one of their captors, looked on with a furious expression. Goraz furiously accused him of cowardice, calling it a sneak attack, but Raid remained unfazed, a realization dawning on him as he saw Eru ensnared by the trap. He turned to the cat spirit tribe members, explaining that they needed to hurry before more monsters gathered. He reasoned that even demons could be dealt with quickly if they were bound with sealing techniques before they could use their magic, and instructed Meraria to go retrieve the guardian sword while they had the chance. But his plan was immediately complicated. A massive, multi-headed serpent rose before them, leading a horde of other monsters that swarmed the area. He realized with dismay that they might have been too late and couldn't afford to be held up here. Reacting swiftly, he ordered Gerard to take Meraria, Eru, and the others to secure the guardian sword first. As Gerard confirmed the order, Raid felt his body begin to move on its own again. A torrent of flame erupted from Gerard's mouth, clearing a path through the demonic horde. As they flew away from the battle, Rowena and Meraria looked back with worried expressions, calling out his name. Rowena's voice carried over the chaos, explaining that she had entrusted the guardian sword's retrieval to the other 2. Raid now stood with Milphie, facing the tide of monsters alone. She finished her thought, resolving that once they had it, they would all escape together. He turned to Milphie, telling her that he wanted her to go with the others if possible. She refused, stating that it was impossible. She would not move until the monsters were completely suppressed. Meanwhile, Goraz struggled against the chains binding him, shouting in frustration. He recognized that the sealing technique used on him was far from ordinary, a fact that Raid observed with a focused gaze. His sealing technique had been cast, But Milie could only watch in disbelief as the demon began to resist. It seemed impossible. It was overpowering her anti-dragon magic with pure, brute strength. She resolved that she would not let it escape. With a final, violent surge of power, the demon Goraz shattered the magical chains binding him, the wooden platform cracking under the immense strain. The backlash from the spell's destruction sent Milie sprawling. Goraz looked down at her, a slight smirk on his face as he noted that the little spirit was quite something. He was unable to press his advantage. However, as Raid stepped forward once more, Goraz stared, shocked, as a new set of chains materialized. Raid's own sealing technique, dragon binding chains. His shock quickly turned to confusion. Goraz recognized the technique, questioning how it could exist when Lord Vasil himself had supposedly eradicated the clan that used it. Hearing this, Raid was left to wonder about the true nature of his own power. Deciding they could discuss it later, he turned his attention to the massive, multi-headed serpent leading the monster horde. He invoked an even stronger spell, the heavy dragon binding chains, and called for Luna to follow up. The luminous chains shot forward, wrapping tightly around the colossal beast's body and necks, completely immobilizing it. With the largest threat contained, he confirmed their new priority with Luna. For now, they would focus on finishing the monsters. The horde of beastmen roared, charging forward to meet them. She responded immediately, unleashing a torrent of destructive energy from her maw that swept across the battlefield, engulfing the front lines of the enemy. Getting back to her feet, Milie rejoined the fray, extending a hand to cast her own binding spell on a charging beastman. She watched as Raid fought back against the horde, unleashing a blast of energy that vaporized an orc before turning to face a charging minotaur. He met its charge by instantly encasing the beast in ice, his hands still faintly glowing with the power of the magical chains he had just used. Meanwhile, a dark, winged figure addressed Luna, commenting that Raid's martial arts and movements in the recent battle were impressive. The figure explained that he had many opportunities to observe the Empire's dragon knights in training, a skill he learned from his parents long ago. Raid watched in shock as the winged man flicked his wrist, effortlessly shattering the magical chains that still bound Goraz. Finally free, Goraz thanked his rescuer, admitting that his own strongest sealing technique had been broken. Eru, however, chided him for being late, saying she had been worried he was done for. The winged man, Fantoris, announced that the magical power seal on both targets was complete. Raid realized with a start that the enemy had more allies. From their position, Goraz and Eru noted the presence of a sealing technique user, assessing the danger level as the highest class. Without warning, Fantoris lunged, crossing the distance to Raid in a blur of motion. He was too fast. A sharp blow struck Raid across the chest, sending him reeling as Luna cried out his name in alarm. As Raid recovered, he recognized the stance his opponent had taken. Fantoris paused, seemingly confirming his target's skill level before preparing his next move. He then unleashed a powerful technique, a blade of dark energy forming from his hand as he declared its name, Dark Fang Piercing Blade. A winged figure cloaked in black swoops down on Raid, unleashing a sinister attack formed from dark energy. The assailant calls out the technique's name, Dark Fang Piercing Blade. Raid's eyes widen in shock as the corrupted blade materializes before him. In response to the sudden assault, Luna, in her brilliant white dragon form, lunges forward with a roar, calling out Raid's name. She intercepts the dark energy blade, just in time, shielding Raid from the blow. The masked attacker grunts as his technique is blocked, while Raid looks on, startled by the timely intervention. He processes the name of the attack. It is a skill name he has never heard before, yet it feels familiar, like a known swordsmanship style that has been modified into a demonic form. His mind connects the technique to the Divine Dragon Empire, a place known for such skills. The thought leaves him unsettled. The masked assailant seems to notice Raid's flicker of recognition, silently questioning how a demon could possibly wield such a technique. The two combatants create distance. Fantoris lands on the ground while Luna hovers in the air, with Raid now safely on her back. The winged man assesses the situation, recognizing Raid as a dangerous opponent skilled in advanced close combat. Raid, seeing that his opponent has no intention of answering his unspoken questions, clenches his fists, readying himself for battle. With the battle lines drawn in the sky, Raid steels his resolve, his fists tight with determination. Then, a realization dawns on him. This man is another descendant of the Imperial Dragon Knight, possessing sealing techniques strong enough to bind and command ancient dragons. Unseen, Eru and Goraz observe from afar. Goraz confirms their mission is complete. They have assessed the sealing user's skill level. Eru agrees, stating that reporting to Lord Vasil is now their top priority. He calls out, shouting for them to wait and tell him more, but the winged figures are already in motion. Behind him, Luna stands in her massive dragon form, poised and ready. Ignoring his plea, Fantoris, Goraz, and Eru take to the sky, swiftly departing from the area. As they fly away, Goraz glances back, roaring a final threat. He vows that the next time they meet, he will personally exterminate the bloodline of the Imperial Dragon Knight that Lord Vasil failed to wipe out. His words fade as the demons become distant specks in the sky. Luna asks Raid if they should pursue them, but he declines, deciding it's better to regroup with Roanna and the others. Later, gathered together, Eru analyzes the situation from the demon's point of view. She explains that a clan possessing techniques to seal the Demon King would naturally be their greatest enemy, making their complete extermination a logical priority for someone like Vasil. Raid listens intently before correcting a common assumption about his clan. He clarifies that while they did make a living as dragon caretakers for generations, the reason for this is the opposite of what most people think. He continues, explaining that they weren't caretakers who happened to learn sealing techniques. Rather, they were able to become caretakers precisely because they possessed sealing techniques powerful enough to bind dragons. Eru adds that skills can evolve, speculating that Vasil's clan hunt likely cut off his family's original traditions. Connecting all the evidence, Eru delivers her conclusion. Raid's magical presence, appearance, and sealing technique are identical to those of the Imperial Dragon Knight. With the Demon King's revival imminent and his forces on the move, she declares with certainty that Raid is a descendant of that legendary line. The revelation leaves him stunned. As he quietly processes this new identity, Luna looks at him gently and suggests that perhaps their meeting was also fated. Her word hangs in the air between them as they both contemplate its meaning. Fate. He wonders aloud if his new identity means he is fated to defeat the Demon King alongside Luna. Eru, however, remains evasive, stating that as a demon's mistress, she doesn't wish for the Demon King's defeat. She then pivots, asking if the seal they were discussing is still intact. Her question hangs in the air as the scene reveals Roanna and Meraria struggling against a shimmering, invisible barrier. Magical energy sparks from Roanna's fists as she strikes it repeatedly. Luna watches them, asking them to hold on a little longer, acknowledging their struggle. Raid considers the situation. He realizes Luna could unleash her breath attack to destroy the barrier, but dismisses the idea, fearing it would cause the entire underground cavern to collapse. Instead, he turns to Roanna, placing a hand on her shoulder and asking her to lend him a hand for a moment. He then infuses his own magical power directly into Roanna, whose eyes widen in astonishment. He explains that he has amplified her strength for about 10 seconds and urges her to break the barrier while she can. Feeling the power surge within her, Roanna grits her teeth, ready for the final push. With a powerful shout, she smashes her fist into the barrier, shattering it into countless fragments of light. Having succeeded, she looks back with a triumphant blush, announcing that she can see beyond it now. Luna remarks on how impressive the feat was for a child. Now that the way is clear, the group ventures deeper into the cavern. They arrive at a large, dark spring, where the hilt of a sword protrudes from the center of the water. As they approach, Raid asks if this is the guardian sword of the spring. Eru floats beside him, her eyes wide with shock as she recognizes the blade, stammering in disbelief. She confirms that it is the divine dragon Imperial sword, Re-Eden, the holy sword the Imperial Dragon Knight once wielded in battle alongside the Demon King. Raid realizes this must be the weapon the 6 attendants were waiting to retrieve. Eru affirms his conclusion. The revelation sinks in. Roanna wonders why such a weapon is in their village. Raid connects the pieces. His clan's sealing techniques can bind the Demon King, and as Luna adds, the Water Spirit clan can seal Eru. He deduces that Vasil is strategically eliminating any clans that pose a threat to the Demon King's revival. Eru adds a final, crucial piece of history. She recalls that just before she was sealed, there was a report of a cat-eared girl in the Imperial Dragon Knight's party. She now realizes that girl may not have been a simple beast person, but a true member of the cat spirit tribe. She explains that through this historical connection, the sword has been protected within the village all this time. Meraria listens, her ears twitching in surprise. She voices her astonishment, recalling that her parents had told her the sword contained the power to destroy great evil, but she never realized it was such a legendary artifact. The blade radiates an incredible magical power that washes over the group. As Meraria holds it, Raid realizes that with such a weapon, he could likely defeat a Hydra in a single swing. Meanwhile, in the Land of Dragons, Luna reports the recent events. Upon hearing the news, the Dragon King, Alburn, convenes an emergency meeting to prepare for the possibility of the Dragon Country being attacked by demons. Back in the village, Luna questions Raid's decision not to participate in the meeting, but he prefers to leave the high-level discussions to the dragons. His attention is suddenly caught by an approaching elder, whom Meraria identifies as her grandfather, the Cat Spirit Tribe Chief. The elder expresses his profound relief that Sir Raid is safe, thanking him for retrieving their guardian sword. Raid deflects the praise, stating that they succeeded by working together. He continues, explaining that the sword is like a guardian deity to his people. He offers his gratitude not only for the sword's return, but for listening to his story and enabling the tribe's return to their homeland. As he speaks, the entire Cat Spirit Tribe bows in unison, with the chief declaring that they wish to repay this debt with their lifelong service. The chief makes special mention of Meraria's role in their success, causing Raid to blush slightly at the overwhelming display of gratitude. She turns to him, a faint blush on her cheeks, and offers a simple, heartfelt well done. As other tribe members cheer her name, Raid returns her gaze with a warm smile. Luna, in her elven form, announces with a sparkle in her eyes that she has prepared a feast with plenty of delicious meat. At the mention of food, Roanna's excitement bubbles over, and she eagerly takes Raid's arm, urging him to join the celebration. The celebration is in full swing. One of the cat spirit tribe members raises his drink high, calling for everyone to celebrate the return of their guardian sword. The village is filled with joyous feasting and merriment as Luna serves a platter of food. Amidst the festivities, Faye happily devours his meal, while Raid, Roanna, and Meraria sit together, savoring the delicious food and the peaceful atmosphere. After making merry and enjoying the feast to their heart's content, the companions and the villagers succumb to exhaustion. They fall asleep right where they are, scattered across the clearing in peaceful slumber. He sleeps soundly, a look of serene contentment on his face, completely unaware of the events unfolding elsewhere. Meanwhile, in a dark and undisclosed location, a momentous decision is made. The sword demon Vasil is finally making his move. Two of his attendants, Goraz and a hooded figure, observe from the shadows. The hooded attendant speaks, their voice low, confirming a long-held suspicion. The descendant of the Imperial Dragon Knight is indeed still alive. Gerard, the Red Dragon, rallies his kin. He reminds them that the princess fought bravely in the homeland of the Cat Spirit Tribe, never backing down against the demon race. With a mighty roar, he commands them all to get fired up and prepare for work. His words stir the other dragons, who declare they won't let the demons get away with targeting the princess's partner. Hearing Raid referred to as her future husband, Luna flushes with embarrassment, finding the entire situation unforgivable. She stands beside Raid, admitting that while their motivation is good, she is confused by them calling him her husband. Nearby, Faye tilts his head, wondering if he's mistaken about how close the two of them truly are. Raid, however, dismisses the concern about the difference in species. He argues that since the princess can now transform into a human, such physical barriers are no longer relevant. As he speaks, Luna leaps up and delivers a sharp blow to Faye's head, silencing his line of thought. Their discussion is cut short by the arrival of Meraria and Roanna. Meraria firmly addresses Gerard, telling him to stop his inappropriate talk as there are children present. Roanna, meanwhile, offers a cheerful greeting to Raid. He turns to them, asking what brings them here. Meraria explains it is just a regular report to confirm that everything is fine, adding that the Cat Spirit Tribe is also helping to protect the Dragon Country. He takes in the news, remarking that it would be for the best if things remain peaceful. From beside him, Roanna offers a simple, reassuring thought. Don't worry. Her confidence swells as she puffs out her chest, proudly declaring that even if something happens, they will protect everyone. The peaceful moment is broken by the urgent arrival of a messenger dragon calling for the princess. The dragon reports that their comrades have detected strong magical power from Cernaria, a faint presence similar to the sealing techniques used by Lord Raid. Luna immediately demands to know which area. The messenger reveals the location, the Warren Great Forest. The name strikes both Raid and Luna, triggering a shared, troubling memory of a younger Raid running through the woods toward a fallen dragon. She recalls that upon reuniting with Raid, she sensed no sealing-type magical power from him. This leads her to speculate that the Demon King might be sealed somewhere within the Great Forest, causing the magical disturbance. Raid, standing with Roanna, agrees with her assessment and declares they should investigate. With their course set, Gerard and Luna take to the skies in their true dragon forms, soaring over the landscape. As they travel, Luna asks Raid, who rides upon her back, if he has a specific destination, noting his apparent confidence. He explains that his father told him of a place within the forest that was frequently used for training back in the era of the Divine Dragon Empire. His explanation prompts Roanna to question the choice of the Great Forest for training. Luna points out the strategic value of a safe haven within enemy territory, and Raid concurs, adding that the absence of monsters makes it an ideal base of operations for their search. Now on foot, Meraria asks him if he was unable to train openly while he was tasked with caring for the Sky Dragons. Raid admits with a tired smile that he felt out of place there and could do little beyond his assigned duties. Sympathetically, she reaches out and touches his cheek, acknowledging how difficult it must have been for him. As the group proceeds through the woods, Meraria observes that the Holy Sword's magical power has subsided since they recovered it. Eru explains that the sword conserves its energy for emergencies, adding a challenge to Raid. His ability to wield its full power will depend on both his skill and whether the legendary blade deems him worthy. She then loudly proclaims that Meraria presented the sword to him precisely because she, as a representative of the Cat Spirit Tribe, believed he could master it with his unique bloodline power. A flustered Meraria urges Eru to be quiet, accusing her of testing Raid. He, however, is distracted by the unnatural silence of the forest, noting the complete absence of monsters. He reasons that most monsters would likely keep their distance, knowing they would have to face two ancient dragons. But then a thought strikes him, a detail he had overlooked until this very moment. He considers Eru's words about his lineage as a descendant of an Imperial Dragon Knight. A new theory forms in his mind. Perhaps the forest has always been teeming with monsters due to the influence of a sealed Demon King. This would explain why his clan used this very forest as a training ground, to monitor the seal and prepare for emergencies. Then, another memory surfaces with clarity. This is the exact place where he and Luna were reunited. He looked toward Luna, remarking that their reunion in this significant place felt like fate. The great dragon considered this, agreeing that it was almost so. This sacred ground was marked by strange, cross-like symbols carved into ancient trees and weathered stones throughout the dense forest. As they proceeded, Meraria voiced her confusion, noting that this path didn't seem to lead to their intended destination. Raid, however, simply reassured her that it was just ahead. He led her to the edge of the woods, where she stopped, her gaze fixed upon a clearing. In the center of a tranquil pool of water, a tall, dark monolith rose toward the sky. Stepping into the open, Meraria expressed her surprise at the sudden spaciousness. Luna, however, was focused on the structure, sensing a strange magical power emanating from it, and asking Raid what it was. He explained that it was the focal point of a barrier that protected the training ground, specifically designed to keep monsters away. His gaze then shifted to Eru, who was casually dipping her feet in the water. He realized there must be exceptions to the barrier, wondering if her demonic nature was being ignored simply because she was with him. Looking back at the monolith, a sense of nostalgia filled him. He recalled his father telling him it was a precious treasure their clan had protected for generations, and he remembered cleaning it with him as a child. Acting on the memory, he took out a cloth and began to wipe down the stone surface. To his complete surprise, the monolith began to emit a soft, sparkling light. The sparkling intensified into a rhythmic flashing. Luna noted the unique interval of the light and asked what it meant. Startled, Raid could only cry out that he didn't know. It had never flashed like this before. He stares, stunned, as the monolith continues to glow. Meraria, holding the guardian sword Reiden, observes that if the sword has appeared, then the time has come. Raid can only stammer the weapon's name in disbelief. From its position in the water, the monolith erupts with a brilliant column of light, illuminating Raid, Meraria, and Luna as they watch. A figure coalesces within the light, a man in ornate, traditional robes with his dark hair tied back. He introduces himself with a calm smile as Mikidzuchi, a former Imperial Dragon Knight. His appearance startles Eru, who exclaims that it's impossible, realizing that only his soul remains in the magic stone. Mikidzuchi greets her warmly, noting it has been a long time and that she hasn't changed. Flustered, Eru accuses him of transcending time just to humiliate her. As the spirit chuckles, Raid notices his form is already starting to blur. The spirit confirms her assessment, stating that as a soul, he does not have much time. His hand begins to dissipate into particles of light. With a sense of urgency, Mikidzuchi turns his full attention to Raid, declaring that there is something he must ask him. He asks the young man for his identity. Raid replies that his name is Raid, and he's a dragon tamer in the Divine Dragon Empire. Upon hearing this, Mikidzuchi's expression is knowing. He confirms to a shocked Raid that he is, indeed, his ancestor. He acknowledges Raid's doubt, explaining that he learned of the current era from the spirit of another ancestor from a few generations prior. The spirit reveals that their family traditions were interrupted because of Vasil, and now he will tell Raid everything. The ancestral spirit turns to both Raid and his ancient dragon partner, Luna, instructing them to listen carefully. He listened as his ancestor, Mikidzuchi, revealed a startling truth. The Demon King was a half-breed, a distant relative of their own clan. Mikidzuchi confessed his original intent was to erase this shame himself, but he could only manage to seal the demon at the cost of his own life, a choice that merely postponed the problem and left his soul in its current, weakened state. Processing this, Raid finally understood the former purpose of his clan. He then asked why the Dragon Tamers forsook the Divine Dragon Empire. Mikidzuchi explained that their people originally lived on an island nation to the east. To defeat the Demon King, they needed to cross the sea, which led to the rise of those who could communicate with dragons and borrow their wings, the first Dragon Tamers. After Mikidzuchi's death, when Vasil had nearly wiped out their clan, a survivor was valued by the Divine Dragon Empire for these skills. It was thanks to this that their bloodline survived, reduced to the role of dragon caretakers. He realized with the start that Eru's suspicion was correct. His clan's original ability, developed over generations, was indeed the art of sealing techniques. Mikidzuchi continued, revealing that the monolith served not only to convey his will, but also as the very entrance to the alternate dimension where the Demon King was sealed. Eru remarked that it was no wonder the demon couldn't be found. The spirit then warned that with the passage of time, crucial information was lost, and the seal had consequently weakened. His ancestor looked upon him, a faint smile on his lips. He declared it must be fate, a form of divine guidance, that Raid had come to this place carrying Reed. The spirit's form flickered, his energy clearly waning. Mikidzuchi stated he was nearing his limit, but had one last thing to impart. Raid, sensing the urgency, asked what he should do about the Demon King. Mikidzuchi's gaze sharpened. He explained that the weakening seal presented an opportunity to destroy the demon permanently. The magical power he had exhausted in their original battle had recovered over the long years. He then gave his descendant a direct command: destroy the Demon King with the Divine Dragon Imperial sword. He asked Raid if he would accept this task. Without a moment's hesitation, Raid's face lit with resolve. He accepted immediately, declaring that if they defeat the Demon King, everyone will be able to live in peace. His ancestor was taken aback by the spirited declaration. A moment later, a look of profound peace settled on his features. He closed his eyes and offered his thanks. As his ancestor's spirit fades, Raid stands before the towering black monolith that serves as the Demon King's seal. He gazes up at the immense, silent structure, contemplating the monumental task he has just inherited. Suddenly, the monolith begins to tremble violently. A deep, unsettling rumble emanates from the stone, and Raid's eyes widen in alarm, caught completely off guard by the unexpected disturbance. With a deafening roar, the structure shatters. A massive wave of energy erupts from its core, blasting outwards with such force that it sends both Luna and Eru flying backwards. Amidst the chaos, Raid realizes the horrifying truth. The magic stone that the Imperial Dragon Knight Mikidzuchi had chosen to house his soul has been destroyed in a single, devastating strike. Mikidzuchi's spirit looks on, his expression one of pained shock. A new figure emerges from the settling dust, a young man in black armor with a cruel smile. He announces that he has been waiting for this very moment, for this power to appear, his eyes gleaming with malice as he remarks on the detestable power and aura before him. Mikidzuchi's spectral form materializes, his expression a mixture of shock and fury as he confronts the armored intruder. He demands to know how the man, whom he identifies as Vasil, managed to breach their sanctuary and immediately questions the fate of the ancient dragons standing guard outside. His question is answered by the scene of utter chaos unfolding beyond. A horde of monstrous creatures clashes violently with the powerful dragons in a brutal, all-out battle. As the scale of the invasion becomes clear, Raid realizes with alarm that even the Sword Demon's 6 attendants have joined the fray, a formidable group of warriors poised for combat. Vasil, however, remains unimpressed, remarking on their preparedness. He reveals his knowledge that the Demon King was sealed in another dimension, coolly stating that he has not wasted the hundreds of years he has been waiting. Following this declaration, a dark, corrupting energy erupts from the ground around him. He stands within the swirling miasma, his power radiating outwards as he calls out Mikidzuchi's name with chilling familiarity. The immense power surge is felt by everyone. Raid notes the ominous and dense magical energy, while Roanna cries out in horror as the surrounding trees wither and die from its corrupting influence. Mikidzuchi, recognizing the immense threat, turns to Eru and apologizes, admitting that their opponent is in a completely different league. His focus then shifts to Raid, his voice grave as he warns the young man to be careful. He then reveals a staggering truth that leaves Raid speechless. This man, Vasil, was once human, the brave warrior who, alongside Mikidzuchi himself, created the Divine Dragon Empire-style techniques. The revelation hits Raid with the force of a physical blow. The founder of the Divine Dragon Empire style. It suddenly makes sense why his attendants could use those techniques. As Raid reels, Vasil observes him with a flat expression, remarking that he can't believe such a dull descendant belongs to Mikidzuchi. With that, Vasil raises his sword, which crackles with immense power. He announces the name of his attack, a Divine Dragon Empire-style technique, Dragon Claw Swift Descent. A colossal, spectral dragon claw manifests from his blade, lunging directly at the stunned Raid. He braces himself as Vasil unleashes a Divine Dragon Empire-style technique, the Dragon Knight combat technique, Dragon Wing Waltz. The blade slices through the air with incredible speed, aimed directly at him. The force of the unseen blow sends him flying backward, blood erupting from his chest. He crashes to the ground, bewildered, realizing the blade never made physical contact. Mikidzuchi's spirit questions if he was struck by erupting magical power. As he lay on the ground, Mikidzuchi identifies Vasil's weapon, the Divine Dragon Imperial Blade, Shangri-La. He explains that it is a holy sword, created to be paired with Re-Eden for slaying demons. However, it is now corrupted with demonic power, and Mikidzuchi marvels at the absurdity of it being able to cut with magical energy alone. The swordsman sends another wave of pure force hurtling forward. Raid is thrown back once more, coughing blood as Faye cries out his name in alarm. Vasil coldly announces his intention to offer up Mikidzuchi's last living relative as a prelude to the Demon King's revival. He demands to know why Vasil, a warrior who co-created the Divine Dragon techniques, became a demon. Vasil's explanation is chillingly simple. A human's lifespan is short. The Demon King granted his wish for an eternity to refine his skills and reach the pinnacle of his craft. Declaring Raid a battle-crazed maniac, Vasil orders his dragons to kill him. He unleashes another powerful attack, shouting its name, Dragon Claw Spiral Grind. A vortex of destructive energy surges forward. The spiraling energy is met by a combined blast of dragon breath from Faye and Luna, completely neutralizing it. Vasil curses the ancient dragons for their interference. Seeing an opening, Raid shouts for Luna. The demon swordsman, however, is one step ahead. He recognizes that Raid is attempting the same technique as Mikidzuchi and counters with a sealing art of his own. Dragon binding chains. Glowing, ethereal chains manifest around him, ready to ensnare his foe. His attack thwarted, Raid realizes with a shock that Vasil even blocked the chains from his blind spot. He admits to himself that he never underestimated his opponent, and with renewed urgency, he yells, Eru, burn him. She responds instantly, launching herself forward in a blaze of fire. As she streaks towards Vasil, she shouts a defiant warning, telling him not to misunderstand. Her body is not his to command just because she has been tamed. As the smoke from her attack begins to clear, Raid watches intently while his dragon companion asks, hopefully, if they manage to defeat their foe. But even so, a powerful slash of energy erupts from within the inferno, effortlessly parting the flames and carving a deep gouge into the landscape. The smoke clears completely to reveal Vasil, utterly unharmed. He looks down at a stunned Eru, stating that he is not misunderstanding anything and will simply cut down all traitors. He internally concedes that Raid is a tougher opponent than he anticipated, just as Luna cries out Raid's name in alarm. In response, he raises his own blade high, its name echoing in his mind, Re-Eden. He grips the hilt, feeling a new connection to the weapon. He realizes that now, as a descendant of the Imperial Dragon Knight Mikitsuchi, he can finally unleash the sword's true power. His confidence is short-lived, however. He knows he can only use the Divine Dragon Empire's combat style with his bare hands, and facing Vasil, he questions if he can truly succeed. He stares at the demonic swordsman, whose presence is overwhelming. Ray doubts his ability to defeat such a monster with sword techniques he has never even practiced. At that moment, the spirit of Mikitsuchi appears beside him. Acknowledging the dire circumstances, he declares his plan. He will transfer a portion of his memories, experience, and magical power directly to Raid. He warns, however, that the power will only last a few minutes, and the recoil will cause his spirit to vanish permanently. His spectral form looks intently at Raid, impressing upon him that he is the only one who could defeat Vasil. He gives a final, solemn command. Do it for the sake of tomorrow. The words settle deep within Raid. He lowers his head for a moment, accepting the immense weight of this duty, and steels his resolve for the battle to come. He finally understood. Until this moment, the talk of his ancestral roots and the survival of his race had felt grand and unreal. But now, things are different. The source of this new reality stood before him. The root of all evil had appeared, a tangible threat in the flesh. Faced with an opponent radiating pure, killing intent, his fist tightened. If this enemy was coming to kill them, then there was only one thing to do: defeat him to survive. His resolve hardened. He called out to the spirit within, his voice ringing with determination. Mikitsuchi, I'll borrow your power. The spirit within him answered, his voice clear and proud. The cloudiness of doubt had disappeared. Then let us begin, my last blood relative. With that blessing, an enormous amount of magical power flooded into Raid. He felt Mikitsuchi's knowledge, his techniques, and his centuries of experience becoming his own. The power settled within him. Now, mounted on Faye and wielding a new, ornate sword, he placed a hand on his partner. He apologized to Luna, asking her to stick with him until the end, confident that with her and this newfound strength, he could finally match his foe. His opponent watched the transformation with a confident smirk, recognizing the revival of the Dragon Knight. Vasil remarked that Raid never failed to exceed his expectations. In response, Raid declared that the Imperial Dragon Knight was coming through, a challenge Vasil readily accepted. As their wills clashed, Vasil unleashed a devastating attack. Scale Light Moon Break. He roared, launching a torrent of energy blades across the sky. From atop Luna's back, Raid watches as the great white dragon unleashes a powerful attack. Scale Light Moon Break. She roars a defiant promise, vowing that their foe will not lay a single finger on Raid, let alone the tip of his sword. The attack dissipates, leaving their opponent, Vasil, standing on the ground below. He looks up with a grimace, a slight wound smoking on his shoulder, but he remains otherwise undeterred by the dragon's might. He scoffs, dismissing Raid as a brat and his 1,000 techniques as insignificant. But Raid, his mind filled with the memories of Mikitsuchi, retorts that Vasil has underestimated them. He declares that he is now channeling a sealing technique, an ultimate art known as Night Power God. With that declaration, he urges Luna forward, swooping down towards Vasil as he commands the ancient power to activate. In response, a swirling vortex of pure darkness erupts in the space behind Vasil. From its depths, ethereal white chains shoot forth, wrapping around the battlefield. The chains find their target, binding Vasil's body tightly. He looks on in surprise, his eyes turning black as the magical restraints glow with power. He strains against the bonds, grunting with effort as the vortex attempts to pull him into its dark abyss. From a distance, Raid and Luna watch the struggle unfold. A realization dawns on Raid. This is the ultimate technique that once sealed the Demon King himself. Vasil is being drawn into another dimension. Despite the immense power of the spell, Vasil scoffs, calling it a petty trick as he grips his sword. Seeing this defiance, Raid shouts that he will not allow him to escape. He leaps into action, meeting Vasil's blade with his own. Sparks fly as their swords clash, locking them in a desperate struggle even as the sealing chains continue to bind the demon. His opponent, Sword Demon Vasil, flinched in surprise as the chains of light, born from the sealing technique, wrapped tightly around him. Raid watched in disbelief. Even with his magic and movement restricted by the power-absorbing chains, Vasil was still able to deflect his sword strikes. He began to worry. At this rate, would Vasil escape the ultimate sealing technique that he had poured most of his magic into? A second activation was impossible, and he knew Mikitsuchi's borrowed power would soon disappear. He grit his teeth in frustration. The portal to the other dimension was right in front of him, Yet Vasil's resistance was immense. The chains of light dug deeper into the demon's form, glowing intensely as he strained against the binding spell. Suddenly, Vasil looked up with a condescending smirk, taunting Raid. He questioned if this was the full extent of his sealing power, dismissing it as a cheap imitation of Mikazuchi's. The demon's dark chuckle echoed as Raid groaned under the strain. Nearby, Faye hesitated, realizing that using his breath attack might shatter the delicate seal. Roanna watched, knowing she was too far to intervene in time. As Vasil's triumphant laughter filled the air, a new figure stepped onto the battlefield, their heeled boots landing firmly on the ground. A young girl with elven features appeared, holding a glowing orb of power. She declared that Vasil was the nemesis of her clan, and that she would erase him right here and now, unleashing a torrent of energy. Caught off guard, Vasil roared in disbelief as streams of water magic constricted him. He demanded to know why a mere surviving water spirit would interfere, but the girl calmly replied that this mere spirit was the one who was cornering him. With the demon bound, Raid draws his sword, its polished steel ringing softly. He calls out to Milie, his voice firm, telling her to leave the rest in. He settles into a fighting stance, fists raised. The water spirit girl watches, her eyes widening in recognition as a spectral image of the legendary knight. Mikazuchi materializes behind Raid, mirroring the exact same posture. The familiar stance triggers a torrent of memories, not Raid's own, but Mikazuchi's. A vision appears of a younger Vasil, his face contorted with rage and his eyes glowing with demonic power. He screams Mikazuchi's name, questioning how he could be defeated after training so hard to surpass even the ancient dragons. The memory shifts to a time before the fall. Mikazuchi remarks that Vasil has won again, noting that such strength is expected from someone who came from the east to defeat the Demon King. Vasil seems almost humbled, acknowledging that he is amazed to hear such praise from the strongest knight of the Divine Dragon Empire. Their collaboration is shown in a study, where Mikazuchi explains that thanks to Vasil's help, he might finally be able to complete the technique needed to counter the Demon King. Vasil, however, turns away with a sharp retort. He thanks Mikazuchi for his cooperation, but declares that his ultimate purpose for helping is to surpass him. This intense rivalry played out in countless sparring matches. Mikazuchi's superior skill is evident as he knocks Vasil to the ground, but the determined knight rises again, their blades locking in a fierce clash. Later, Mikazuchi finds Vasil sitting alone in his dimly lit room. He approaches his rival and asks him a simple, piercing question. Does he truly wish to defeat him? The vision recedes, and Raid returns to the present, the weight of the revelation settling upon him. He now understands what he has just witnessed. Vasil's past, seen through the memories of Mikazuchi. He sees the truth of the demon before him. Vasil's sole desire was to defeat Mikazuchi. His pride was so immense it wouldn't allow for anything else, driving him to abandon his humanity and become a demon to achieve his goal. He recoiled at the familiar words, even as Mikazuchi's spirit, speaking through Raid, insisted that he still required more training. Vasil roared back, demanding that his old rival not use Raid's face to speak to him. In response, Raid channeled the spirit's power, unleashing a secret technique of the Divine Dragon Empire's Dragon Knights, the Dragon-Piercing Awakening. A spectral, skeletal hand of energy shot forward, striking Vasil squarely in the chest. The blow sent Vasil reeling as a dark aura swirled violently around him. Raid, filled with Mikazuchi's righteous anger, declared that this was for the water spirits, the cat spirits, and his own ancestors that Vasil had slain. His eyes burned with pure hatred as he screamed that Raid could apologize to them all in the afterlife. The intense vision shattered, returning Raid to the present. He stood in a quiet clearing, the echoes of the past fading, as Milie watched him from a short distance. He looked down at the dagger in his hands, recognizing the technique he had just witnessed. The ultimate technique, Nightblade God, a powerful art that seals its target along with the very space around. The weight of this knowledge settled upon him. He mused that without Mikazuchi's memories, he would have lived his entire life in ignorance. With a faint smile, he acknowledged what an unbelievable ancestor he had. The borrowed power receded completely. He realized the time was up, the direct link was gone, but Mikazuchi's memories remained. Looking toward the sky, he spoke to the lingering spirit, stating that he had inherited their clan's legacy and sealed Vasil, hoping his ancestor could now rest easier. From ethereal plane, the spirit of Mikazuchi offered a faint, proud smile, acknowledging the remarkable young man who now carried his will. With the battle concluded, Raid rejoined his companions. He, Milie, Roanna, and Luna stood together before a great, black monolith that had risen from the ground, marking the spot where the sword demon Vasil was now sealed. He gazes at the black monolith, understanding now that the Nightblade God technique he used has created an entrance to another dimension, a swirling vortex of darkness hanging in the air above the seal. As a demon attendant apologizes to her demon king for failing to stop him, Raid senses a powerful magic rivaling that of the ancient dragons. Nearby, Luna announces that she and Raid will proceed alone from this point, asking the others to wait. The source of that power becomes clear as a horde of monsters, including beastmen and winged demons, charges across the landscape with ferocious intent. Leading the charge are three figures, Goraz, Fantoris, and a light-haired female attendant. With a confident smile, she remarks that, just as she thought, Lord Vasil has been defeated. From his vantage point, Raid realizes the gravity of the situation. The remaining members of the Sword Demon's 6 attendants and all their subordinates are gathered before him. He calls out to them, stating that with Vasil sealed, there is no reason to fight. Internally, he admits his exhaustion after breaking the ancient dragon's encirclement and his desire to avoid conflict. But Goraz glares back, his face a mask of fury, declaring that in place of their master, they now have a mission to revive the Demon King. Sensing his depleted state, Milie urges Raid to go on ahead. He confides in her that he used nearly all his magic to seal Vasil and will be out of options if any more powerful foes appear. In response to his vulnerability, Gerard and Meraria step forward, placing themselves between Raid and the enemy army. Gerard tells him to leave it to them, as they will hold the line. Meraria adds that she can at least act as a shield. He looks upon the vast demonic army, realizing that facing so many will not end well. He questions if he should proceed to seal the Demon King, even if it means accepting sacrifices among his allies. Just then, reinforcements crash down from the sky. A group of dragons, led by one who calls Gerard brother, announces they have defeated the other demons and caught up. Gerard commends their work as the dragons roar, ready to stand against the remaining demonic forces. He roared, leading the draconic reinforcements in a thunderous charge. With the full might of his kin behind him, he bellowed the command for their final, decisive push. As the dragons surged forward, Raid watched his allies join the fray. The demon attendants, however, were far from pleased. Fantoris' face contorted with rage as he cursed the ancient dragons for their intervention. With the battle now joined by his draconic friends, Raid turned to Luna. He offered a quick apology, promising to return soon. Trusting his companions to hold the line, he watched as Luna plunged into a swirling vortex of darkness, carrying them forward to their next destination. Riding atop Luna, Raid streaks through the sky, lightning crackling around them as they fly with incredible speed. They approach their destination, a colossal, monstrous being, bound by a glowing, magical chain that pierces its spiky hide. He lands before the creature, whose single eye glares down at him. The demon speaks, its voice a low rumble, recognizing the scent of Mikazuchi's descendant and questioning if Raid has come to destroy. In response to the question, the demon unleashes a torrent of magical energy, boasting that it is an almost infinite source of power. The sheer, overwhelming presence of the Demon King makes Raid flinch. He quickly composes himself, however, recognizing that the threats are useless. As someone who handles sealing techniques, he can tell that Mikazuchi's seal is still fully functional, rendering the demon completely powerless in its current state. The Demon King seems surprised by his lack of fear, questioning his sanity and asking if he truly intends to destroy it. It shifts its approach, attempting to entice him with promises of power. The demon claims that with its help, Raid could peer into the abyss of sorcery, rewrite the truth of the world, and even attain eternal life. The creature continues, offering to make him a demon like Vasil, capable of fulfilling any wish. Unmoved, Raid calmly sits and asks if the great Demon King is now begging for its life. As he speaks, Luna calls out, urging him onward. He declares that he is nothing more than a humble dragon caretaker. The demon lets out a pained grunt as the magical seal glows brighter. He holds up a glowing crystal, proclaiming that he wishes for nothing more than to live peacefully in the dragon country. With that, he drives the crystal into the chain, reinforcing the ancient seal. He thrusts the glowing crystal forward, channeling its power into the monolith. The light strikes the sealed Demon King, causing the monstrous entity to recoil and roar in agony as the magical prison around it strengthens. The monstrous being is consumed by the blinding light, its form fracturing. It screams out in confusion, questioning what Vasil is doing and demanding its immediate release before its voice is drowned out by the surge of power. As the blinding light subsides, Raid looks back from atop Luna's back, his expression grim but resolute. He quietly confirms to himself that the ordeal is over. He and Luna fly away, leaving the now silent monolith standing peacefully in the center of the lake, the forest around it undisturbed. Their flight leads them back to a clearing where their allies have gathered. A crowd of dragons, along with Roanna, Meraria, and Milie, wait anxiously. Roanna is the first to spot him, calling out his name in relief. He lands and is immediately greeted by Milie and Meraria. A warm smile spreads across his face as he announces his return. As the group begins to regroup, Luna turns to Gerard midair to ask about the fate of the demons. Gerard reports that they all screamed and shattered into nothingness just before Raid returned. Nearby, Eru reflects on this grimly. She explains that the demons vanished in a chain reaction when the Demon King disappeared, a consequence of the Holy Sword's power. With a somber look, she laments that she failed to die and is still alive. She continues, clarifying that they later learned only those who swore absolute loyalty to the Demon King were shattered along with him. Because she hadn't fully aligned herself, she was spared. Raid acknowledges that everyone is battered, but expresses his relief that they are all alive, suggesting they pray at the monolith before returning to the Dragon Country. But as he finishes speaking, the ground trembles and the monolith in the water begins to shake violently. His eyes widen in shock, and he urgently shouts for everyone to take to the sky. As the monolith prison crumbles, the dragons heed the command to evacuate, scattering into the turbulent, rain-soaked sky. Amidst the chaos, a new figure emerges, his eyes black with rage. He screams Raid's name, while Raid, in turn, shouts out the name of the sword demon. Vasil, the armored demon, questions how Raid dared to seal the Demon King. He reveals that because Raid sealed the entire space, it managed to escape the influence of the demon-destroying protection, isolating it from any outside interference. His fury now directed at the fleeing dragons. He singles one out, identifying it as the last descendant of Mikitsuchi. With a roar of hatred, he swings his massive blade, blaming the dragon for its very existence. The devastating arc of his sword cuts through the air, striking down not just his target, but several other dragons caught in its path. Watching the slaughter, Raid realizes the direness of their situation. He knows Luna no longer has the magical power for her breath attack. The ancient dragon's movements are sluggish, and everyone is at their limit. He turns to Luna with a plan, declaring that he will hold Vasil off. He instructs her to take everyone and leave, to call Fae and the Sky Dragons from the Divine Dragon Empire for aid. Luna protests, calling his plan reckless, and reminding him that his body and magic must also be at their limit. She urges him to value his comrades' lives. Their eyes meet in a moment of silent communication, a shared understanding passing between them. As Raid settles onto Luna's back, Gerard speaks up from nearby, his voice a low rumble as he simply says, "I understand." He then addresses Luna directly, questioning if she's sane. He tells her that if this is Raid's choice, then believing in him is also a partner's duty. She pleaded with him, but Raid was resolute. As magical chains erupted from the ground, forming a vast net, he yelled for Luna to go now. His sealing technique, the dragon binding chains, was active. Heeding his command, she and the other dragons took to the sky, leaving the battlefield behind. Her final thought was a desperate wish for him not to die. With the dragons safely away, Raid stood upon the web of chains and faced his opponent. He observed that Vasil seemed quite angry. The demon clenched a bleeding fist, his voice tight with rage, questioning how frustrating it was that someone so unlike Mikitsuchi had been the one to defeat the Demon King. His rage boiled over. Vasil crouched, declaring his need for more flesh and roaring for Raid to become his sacrifice. Unflinching, Raid braced himself and challenged him to come. He moved with blinding speed, striking Raid across the face with a vicious backhand. The impact sent Raid's head snapping back with a grunt of pain. The force of the strike staggered him, but in that moment of vulnerability, he spotted a critical opening in Vasil's side. He saw his chance. Pivoting instantly, Raid lunged forward with his sword, determined not to let his opponent escape. Vasil watched the counterattack, wondering if Raid could truly defend from such a compromised position. His blade was merely a distraction. Raid executed a move from the Divine Dragon Empire style, the Dragon Wing Waltz, striking Vasil's abdomen with his armored fist. As the blow connected, he realized with a grim certainty that the power he had inherited from Mikitsuchi was now gone. The blow landed true, but Vasil barely flinched. His dark eyes narrowed as he felt the sealing technique's chains wrapping around his feet, steadily draining his magical power. He scoffed at the attempt, dismissing Raid's efforts as petty tricks from the one who defeated the Demon King. He questioned why his own body, which had sacrificed everything for power, was still being held back. Across from him, Raid steeled himself, knowing he couldn't take the demon's head. He listened as Raid declared that he, Vasil, had lost humanity's strongest weapon. The demon's swordsman narrowed his eyes, questioning what Raid could possibly mean. He countered, roaring that his own body, which wields the sword Shangri-La and has been perfected over hundreds of years with Divine Dragon Empire sword techniques, is the true strongest weapon. With that, he lunged, his blade clashing against Raid's. He pushed back against the demon's blade, declaring that Vasil was mistaken. Stomping his foot, he reactivated the magical chains, explaining that he would now reveal humanity's true strongest weapon. He placed a hand over his chest, revealing his belief. The strongest weapon is the heart. He recalled the countless times he had been saved by others, their support fueling his desire to help them in return. It was this heart, this connection, that Vasil had lost. He continued his condemnation, accusing Vasil of betraying his comrades and homeland to perfect his skills. In exchange for demonic power, he had sacrificed humanity's greatest weapon, leaving him with nothing but a hollow obsession with surpassing Mikitsuchi. Then, with his conviction set, he raised his sword once more. He charged, but Vasil easily parried the blow. The sheer force of the impact sent a shockwave that sliced Raid's cheek. The demon taunted him, demanding to see this so-called strongest weapon with his own eyes. He pressed his advantage, mocking Raid's inability to overwhelm him. With a cruel smile, he promised to demonstrate his own power until Raid's will to revive was completely shattered. As the demon's blade pressed closer, Raid desperately invoked a protective power, shouting for demon-destroying protection as a faint light flared between them. The light did little to deter Vasil, who smirked at the attempt. He acknowledged Raid's talent as an Imperial Dragon Knight, but confidently stated that Raid's body would break before his power could make a difference. He declares his reckless intent. Before he falls, he will destroy Vasil with the power of the heart, the very thing the demon discarded. Vasil, with a cold look, accepts the challenge. As they plummet through the air, Vasil grabs his arm, demanding to know why Raid would release Raiden's power if his plan was simply to take them both down in a fall from this great height. The reason for the close quarters maneuver becomes brutally clear as Raid drives his blade deep into Vasil's back. The demon roars, finally understanding that this was Raid's aim from the start, a carefully constructed plan to defeat one of the four heavenly kings. With a mocking laugh, Vasil blasts Raid away, shouting that no mere human can survive such a fall. Sent hurtling towards the ground, Raid calls out to Vasil in his mind, asking if he has forgotten humanity's strongest weapon. The heart, he thinks, can transcend species, allowing one to care for another. As if in answer, a great white dragon swoops in from below, catching him in midair. From high above, Vasil watches as Luna cries out Raid's name. Safely on her back, he looks at Luna with relief, thanking her for the rescue and vowing that he won't let her go again. His gaze then shifts to the horizon, where a squadron of dragons flies towards them. He calls out, asking who said it was only Luna coming to his aid. Far above, Vasil expresses his disbelief, wondering how an ancient dragon with depleted magical power could have arrived so quickly. The approaching dragons are revealed to be Faye and Gerard, leading the charge. They tell Raid they've come to help and that he can leave the rest of them. Gerard roars for all the dragons to join in destroying the demon. They rally together, pledging their strength to their proud friend, the Imperial Dragon Knight reborn in their world. From above, the stunned Vasil identifies the arriving force as sky dragons. He roars, his eyes turning into black voids of fury. Faced with the overwhelming force of the dragons, the Heavenly King declares that now is the time to show them his pride. In the distance, Raid stands ready, bathed in a brilliant aura. In response, the dragons unleash a unified torrent of power. As the blinding beam of energy surges toward Vasil, Raid's voice condemns him as a traitor to the divine dragon empire, a knight who abandoned his master and his dragon brethren. He bellows that Vasil will now perish by the very wrath he forsook. Caught in the blast, Vasil can only question in disbelief if his body is truly being defeated by the sky dragons he once served alongside. The overwhelming wave of draconic energy consumes him entirely, his form dissolving within the searing, white-hot light. The sight of the fallen knight stirs a deep sorrow in the spectral form of Mikazuchi. A pained expression crosses his face as he murmurs in quiet anguish, remembering that he, too, once had friends who understood his heart and dragon mounts he cherished. He is left with a single, stark realization. All that remains is regret, as the last vestiges of a forgotten figure turn to dust by the water's edge. In the aftermath of the great battle, a massive, smoking crater marks the land where the final blow was struck. The name of the ancient power, Mikazuchi, hangs in the silent air. The silence is shattered as the assembled dragons let out a thunderous, unified roar of victory, their cries echoing across the ravaged landscape. Aboard Luna, Raid looks on as she turns her head to him, her voice laced with concern. She remarks on his battered and bruised state after the fight. He offers a weary smile, apologizing for worrying her, but expressing his sincere gratitude for her help. Beside him, the spectral form of Mikazuchi materializes, suggesting that while there is much to discuss, they should first bask in the warmth of their victory. Raid looks on, momentarily confused. Luna then addresses the other dragons, proudly declaring that this great achievement belongs to her partner, Raid. In response, the dragons, led by Gerard and Faye, erupt in cheers, hailing him as Raid the Dragon Tamer and the new Imperial Dragon Knight. As they take to the skies, she makes a formal proclamation. All of dragonkind now offers their divine protection to the newly born Imperial Dragon Knight. The weight of her words leaves Raid stunned, questioning what the protection of the Imperial Dragon Knights truly means. Time passes, and about 10 days later, the world has begun to change. With the Demon King's defeat, monster activity has subsided across the lands. The Divine Dragon Empire and its neighboring countries have started to regain their peace, with dragons now flying freely over towns. In a peaceful clearing, the external injuries of Luna and the other dragons have mostly healed. They rest while being tended to by human caretakers. Inside a quiet room, Rowena sits engrossed in a book when she suddenly calls out for Raid. Just outside, a pained groan can be heard. The sound came from Raid, who is resting in bed. Rowena rushes to his side, chiding him for trying to move and reminding him he was bedridden for 3 days. He thanks her for her concern and asks if she's been bored, but Rowena beams, holding up her book. She assures him she hasn't been bored at all, as she's been reading stories about the gods. He expresses his surprise at her interest in mythology. Rowena explains that while the Divine Dragon Empire Lazaria has its own stories about gods creating races and the world, the Cat Spirit Tribe has similar tales. However, she notes the myths passed down within the Dragon Country are different. Her cheerful demeanor fades as she looks down at the book, her expression growing serious. She begins to recount the tale, starting with the words, long, long ago, transporting them to a story from an era when only gods existed, a time of primordial landscapes and ancient, crumbling ruins. In this ancient time, a winged man lies defeated on the scorched earth. A voice rings out, questioning how far he will go, just as a massive, clawed foot crashes down beside him. The creature, a powerful dragon, unleashes a devastating blast of energy, tearing the very ground asunder. The source of this destruction is revealed to be a dark-haired man with pointed ears, who watches with a confident smirk. The defeated, winged man defies him, shouting that no matter how much he destroys, his desires will never be fulfilled, addressing him as the demon god Noriris. Unfazed, Noriris calmly retorts that his desires will indeed be met. He reveals his grand design, explaining that everything that has transpired has been a mere setup. He issues a challenge, stating that if his true opponent reveals himself, then the one he adores will also be forced to appear. His gaze falls upon two dragons, one of them the red dragon Gerard. Noriris addresses the other, a majestic, light-scaled dragon, as his old friend, the divine dragon Edelgripas, the ancestor of all dragons. He confirms his true motive. She was the target of his scheme all along. He confronted his former ally, questioning why they would oppose him and take the dragon's side. He reminded them of the law they had established together, that the weak exist only to become fodder for the strong. His expression fell as he asked with genuine hurt why they would all betray him. His gaze then shifted to the divine dragon, Edelgripas, whom he addressed as an old friend. The great dragon's eyes narrowed in response. Edelgripas explained their change of heart, stating that they had come to realize their actions were evil because they lacked love. Noriris dismissed this as foolishness, questioning the wisdom of entrusting the future of the divine race to something so uncertain. He countered that love is precisely what can accomplish such a feat. The tension broke. Noriris declared he had been waiting for this moment, but the dragon roared that it would not let him pass. A powerful beam of energy erupted from the dragon's maw, engulfing the battlefield in blinding light. Back in the present, Roanna read the final lines from the book, a poignant passage about a mother choosing to perish alongside her child rather than abandon them. Raid, listening from his bed, remarked that it was the first time he had heard a story about the ancestors of the ancient dragons. He found the descriptions so detailed that it felt like a true historical account. Roanna closed the book, announcing that the story was over. As she asked what was next, Luna's voice came from the doorway, inquiring if Raid was behaving himself. Her arrival delighted Roanna, who excitedly declared that she and Meraria were going to bake catnip bread before waving goodbye. Luna stepped into the room, smiling warmly at Raid while holding a clean white cloth. She asks about his injuries. Raid explains that thanks to her and the others' care, he has improved a lot, though his internal organs are still recovering. He admits he never expected such a severe magical backlash, and that the divine dragon Imperial sword is strictly off-limits for a while. He is startled when Luna presents the very sword in question, re-Eden. He thought it had been returned to the cat spirit tribe with Shangri-La. Luna clarifies that it was sent from the tribe's leader in Meraria. Since it originally belonged to the Imperial Dragon Knight, Mikazuchi, they believe it should be held by his descendant, Raid. She adds her hope that he won't need to use it again, as there are no more enemies. She reconsiders her own words, however, and sheaths the blade. Even so, she decides she will keep it for a while, thinking to herself that Raid would surely push himself too hard if he had access to it so soon. He smiles faintly, understanding her concern. He agrees, asking her to return it once his body has fully recovered, acknowledging that she must still be angry about that time he overexerted himself. He then lets out a wide yawn. Apologizing to Luna, he decides to take another nap and begins to pull the covers over himself. Before he can lie down, she stops him with a suggestion. "How about this?" she asks, offering her lap as a place for him to rest his head. Raid looks up, his eyes wide with surprise. His shock is evident as he processes the unexpected offer. He lays his head down, and his first thought is simply of how soft it is. A moment later, realization dawns. Flustered, he recognizes the gentle scent as Luna's. He looks up to see her smiling down at him, her expression full of warmth as he rests comfortably on her lap. She gazes down at him, a soft blush warming her cheeks as she quietly speaks his name. He looks up with concern, asking if her legs will get numb and assuring her she doesn't need to force herself. She dismisses his worry, explaining that she wants to do this for him, so it's fine. Besides, she adds, partners are always together. She seeks his agreement with a gentle smile, and he can only affirm her words. In that peaceful moment, neither of them knew what lay ahead. The days of mortal combat that were about to begin, or the fateful encounter that would forever alter their destiny. As he rests, a strange sensation washes over him. He feels a voice calling his name from distance. The faint call echoes in his mind, and he wonders, "Who are you?" On a bright morning, a voice calls out for Raid from behind a closed door. He opens it with a gentle smile, observing that it is another fine day. Luna greets him warmly, announcing that breakfast is ready. Still in his sleepwear, Raid agrees, saying he will get ready and be right there. 1 year has passed since the battle with the Demon Clan, and during that time, the Dragon Kingdom has been slowly changing. From a balcony, he and Luna look out over a bustling port where dragons swim freely in the water. Downstairs, Roanna cheerfully wishes Raid a good morning, calling him Big Brother. Beside her, Milphie offers her own quiet greeting as they present a basket of freshly baked bread. He thanks them both for the meal. Luna then offers to help with the cleanup afterward, an offer which Milphie gratefully accepts. A woman from the cat spirit tribe, holding her baby, apologizes for having them prepare food for everyone, but Roanna encourages her to eat. As his stomach growls, Raid announces that it's time to begin a meal. She puffs out her chest with pride, insisting that it's perfectly fine. She declares that she is now the big sister for the entire cat spirit clan. She explains that with the recent calm in monster activity, many of her people have returned to their homeland to rebuild. Full of motivation, she is ready to do her part. Her words make Raid thoughtful. To avoid risk, families with infants and pregnant mothers have remained behind in the Dragon Kingdom, and those with free time are helping with tasks like making meals. He muses that it's strange to think he was once treasured by his own parents in the very same way. Elsewhere, Eru stretches widely as she enters the room, asking Milie if she can have some breakfast. Milie, accustomed to this routine, agrees but tells Eru that she must help clean up later. She loudly complains that her breakfast portion is too small. Raid observes this exchange, noting to himself that Milie used to despise Eru so much she would attack her on sight. The fact that they can now have a normal conversation suggests Eru's notorious anger has finally subsided. Her complaint is met with a flat dismissal from Luna, who tells her it's just her imagination. Flustered, Eru shouts that it is not her imagination and immediately takes back her previous calm demeanor. Raid steps in, telling Luna they are heading to the center of the Dragon Kingdom today. He explains that while they would normally be occupied with caring for the ancient dragons or gathering materials, today's agenda is different. He reveals it is the day of a very important ceremony. The group, including Raid, Eru, Roanna, and Luna in her true dragon form, walks alongside a great procession of other dragons toward a vast, open area. Upon arriving, Raid observes that everyone seems to have gathered. The Dragon King, Alburn, addresses the assembly, announcing that it is time to perform the Dragon Vein ceremony. He commands everyone present to offer their prayers to their ancestor, the divine dragon Edel Grylis. In perfect unison, the entire host of dragons bows their heads in solemn reverence. The sheer scale of the event is overwhelming. Raid can only watch, struck with awe at the sight of so many powerful beings bowing as one. He quietly confirms the name he heard, Edel Grylis. He reflects that this is the legendary divine dragon, the one revered by all ancient dragons. His thoughts continue, recalling that this was the very being who fought the Demon King alongside his own ancestor, Mikazuchi. It was Edel Grylis who gave the divine dragon Holy Sword, Li-Eden, its demonic annihilation blessing. As the prayer concludes, he tells the others they can relax. As the dragons begin to move, Raid's attention is captured by an object of impossible scale before him. He stares, dumbfounded, at a single, colossal horn rising from the earth. He stared at the colossal relic, realizing that if the horn was this large, the divine dragon's body must have been far larger than any of the ancient dragons. He learned that this was a piece that broke off during the battle with the Demon King. The Dragon Vein ceremony, which utilizes the horn, is performed only once every few centuries. This being his first time witnessing it, he wondered aloud how they would use it. In response, the horn began to glow, projecting a brilliant pillar of light straight into the heavens. The Dragon King, Alburn, stood before the relic as Raid watched, his mouth agape in awe. The beam of light continued its ascent, a powerful beacon piercing through the clouds. He finally understood. This was the Dragon Vein ceremony. The ancient dragons, who constantly handle magic for their very survival, were using the horn to absorb a vast amount of magical energy from the dragon veins that flowed throughout the kingdom. Standing beside Roanna and Milie, he remarked on the beauty of the sight. It was explained that once every few centuries, when the dragon veins weaken, the reigning Dragon King performs this ceremony to reactivate them. As the brilliant light faded, Luna, in her dragon form, cautioned him not to move yet, explaining that there was still more to come. He turned to her, puzzled, while Faye and Gerard also watched the sky in anticipation. He understood then why everyone remained standing in place. Luna elaborated, explaining that just as humans can sometimes be granted skills from the heavens, this ceremony was said to conclude with a final gift from the heavens for the dragons. Just then, a brilliant object shot down from the sky, hurtling directly toward their position. Gerard roared a warning for everyone to get back. The object slammed into the ground with a blinding flash, sending up a cloud of dust and forcing the nearby dragons to stumble back. From the crater left by the violent impact, a figure becomes visible through the settling dust. Raid shields his eyes, his voice trailing off in disbelief as he tries to comprehend what he is seeing. The object from the heavens is not an object at all, but a person. It is a young girl, seemingly asleep and unharmed, her expression serene. She is the gift bestowed upon the dragons. Her sudden appearance sends a ripple of confusion and awe through the assembled dragons. Roanna calls out to Luna and Gerard, her senses overwhelmed by the powerful presence emanating from the sleeping girl as the other dragons stir uneasily. As they hesitate, the Dragon King Alburn descends, his voice a low rumble of caution. He warns them not to approach the girl carelessly, identifying her not merely as a person, but as a divine being. Alburn's ancient eyes study her, perceiving what the others cannot. He senses an extraordinary amount of magic contained within her small form, a power so immense that a startling realization begins to dawn on him. His thoughts solidifying into certainty, he makes a declaration that stuns the onlookers. He confirms his suspicion aloud. The girl is a divine being. The word hangs in the air, sparking a flurry of astonished whispers among the other dragons. They struggle to grasp the meaning, questioning if she is truly a genuine god. Such a descent is an unprecedented event, unheard of since the time of the great divine dragon, and they wonder what it could possibly mean for a god to be the kingdom's gift. Amidst the confusion, Luna takes charge, turning to Raid with an urgent request. She apologizes for the imposition, but asks him to take the divine girl to the cat spirit tribe's village for safekeeping, explaining that she must immediately consult with her superiors. Understanding the gravity of the situation, Raid agrees without hesitation. He kneels beside the unconscious girl. As he gazes at her face, a flicker of recognition crosses his features. When Luna asks if something is wrong, he simply responds with a quiet, firm no. His cryptic response is left hanging as, elsewhere, life in the cat spirit tribe's village continues, unaware of the divine guests soon to arrive. Two villagers converse on a wooden platform, one remarking that there is nothing unusual to report. Inside a quiet room, the divine girl rests unconscious in a bed. Luna, in her elven form, gently tends to her while Raid watches from a chair nearby. The girl's hand twitches, a small sign of life. As they observe her, Luna expresses her astonishment, marveling that a being with such immense magic, a divine, could even exist. Raid, however, is troubled by the situation. He questions why a being of her power would be unconscious, and more perplexing, why a god would fall from the sky. He reflects on the legends he knows, recalling that tales of the divine are spread across the world. They are worshipped as creator gods, beings with the immense power to shape the world and bring forth many races. This makes the current situation all the more significant. For such a divine being to descend upon the Dragon Kingdom, presented as a gift, is an event of unprecedented scale. Watching over the sleeping girl, Raid voices his hope that her descent is a peaceful one. Luna remains silent, her expression etched with deep concern. He turns to Luna, acknowledging her worry. He finds it understandable, considering a divine being has just fallen from the sky at the very moment the Dragon Kingdom had finally found peace. He then admits there is something else on his mind, something he is curious about. His thoughts drift back to a dream he had, one where he couldn't clearly recognize the face or voice of the person within it. He realizes now that it was a memory from Mikazuchi, the same one who granted him magic, swordsmanship, and knowledge of the clan after he defeated Vasil. Within that inherited memory, a small fragment of Mikazuchi's personal life had flowed into him. He recalls seeing a face for just an instant, a face that bore a striking resemblance to the child sleeping before him. The connection becomes clear in his mind. The woman from his dream and this girl are incredibly similar. The implication hits him with full force, his eye widening in shock at the connection to Mikazuchi's memories. He looks again at the girl, his mind racing with possibilities. He wonders if there could be something more at play, a karmic link or a destiny stretching back to Mikazuchi's era, intertwined with a long-standing conflict against the Demon King and his clan. He listened as Eru explained her presence. She admitted to slacking off from the Dragon Vein ceremony when she felt an unusual power and came to investigate. With a troubled expression, Ray decided they would simply have to ask the girl what happened when she woke up. As he contemplated this, Era demanded to know the girl's identity, exclaiming that she could feel magic from her that rivaled the Divine Dragon Emperor's sword. She questioned if the girl was a relative of the Divine Dragon, but then immediately dismissed the idea herself. Ray confirmed her initial thought was a good guess, but that it was ultimately incorrect. She processed this new information, her hand to her chin in thought. Eru found it hard to believe that a genuine divine being would descend in their current era. Her thoughts then turned to the Divine Dragon's horn, recalling how she had witnessed it snap off with her own eyes back in the Dragon Kingdom. It was safe to assume the horn was the reason for the girl's descent. In ages past, items with a strong connection to a god were used as a medium to summon them into the mortal world. Ray considered this, a slight smile playing on his lips. He found it almost unbelievable that there was an era when people could simply summon gods. The fact that a different god appeared, however, remained inexplicable. His musings were interrupted by Roanna, who, having understood the situation, announced she would leave the village for a while. She warned him not to even think about leaving the Dragon Kingdom before the girl woke up. Flustered, Raid insisted he just wanted to get away from the divine being, telling Roanna not to be so suspicious. Their argument was cut short by a soft sound. The divine girl's eyes fluttered open. Eru gasped, covering her mouth as she realized the girl was awake. She slowly pushed herself up into a sitting position, the room silent save for the soft rustle of the bedsheets. The divine had woken up. Her gaze swept over them, landing on the stunned faces of Raid, Luna, and Eru. The room held its breath as the newly awakened girl simply stared back. Her eyes opened, a look of confusion on her face as she sat up and asked where she was. Raid stepped forward to explain that she was in the Dragon Kingdom, the home of the ancient dragons. The girl repeated the name to herself, her expression unreadable. Now sitting fully upright in bed, with Raid, Luna, and Eru gathered around her, she paused for a moment. Then, with genuine curiosity, she posed a question that stunned them all. What is an ancient dragon? The implication was clear. The girl, a being they believed to be divine, had amnesia. Inside a room, the young girl with light hair sits up in bed, looking between Raid and Luna with confusion. She asks who they are, prompting a startled reaction from Raid. She then follows up with a more pressing question. Who is she? Raid realizes with a start that she has amnesia, making it impossible to question her. He decides that the best course of action is to begin with introductions. He begins, introducing himself as Raid Dryson, and then gesturing to his companions, Luna and Eru. He explains to the girl that, in simple terms, she is a great being of a divine race, a god, and that her sudden appearance had shocked them all. The girl calmly confirms that this is correct. Raid expresses his relief that they can at least communicate. Turning to Luna, he asks her not to be so formal with him, explaining that it makes it more difficult for him to ask things. The girl, having taken this all in, touches her chin thoughtfully. She asks what she should be called, since she doesn't even know her own name. Raid listens, understanding the predicament. She elaborates that she needs a name to go by until her memory returns. Since Raid was the one who kindly explained everything, she asks him to give her a good name. He seems taken aback, realizing the weight of such a responsibility. Her eyes sparkle with earnest anticipation as she awaits his answer, her expression full of hope. Her hopeful gaze makes him flustered. After a moment of hesitation, he collects himself, points forward with determination, and announces that he has decided on her name. He declares that her name will be Kalmia. The girl repeats the name softly to herself, a faint blush rising on her cheeks as the sound settles in her mind. Her face lights up with pure delight. Kalmia exclaims that it has a nice ring to it and is a wonderful name. Seeing her happiness, Raid offers to introduce her to everyone else living in the Dragon Nation. Just as he was about to say the name he'd thought of, the word Kalmia floated into his mind. Raid wondered if it had come from Mikizuchi's memory, and if the Imperial Dragon Knight had known this girl. He realized this must be her true name, but that only raised more questions. What did it mean? Why had she come to the Dragon Nation? What was the connection to his dream? And above all, why had she lost her memory? His questions about Mikizuchi's involvement lingered, but for now, there were more immediate matters. After that, Kalmia made her rounds of greetings in the Dragon Nation. Thanks to the Dragon King's arrangement, she would stay until her memory returned. The ever-helpful members of the Cat Spirit tribe offered their assistance, but were politely waved away. As they walked, her attention was suddenly captured by the ground beneath her feet. She stared in awe at a massive, glowing fissure, exclaiming that it was an immense flow of mana, like a great river flowing underground. Her perception was unusually sharp. Faye noted that mana can't normally be seen unless drawn out by magic circles or spells. It was clear that even though Kalmia had forgotten her divine abilities, her eyes could still precisely perceive the workings of mana. As they emerged from the passage, Mikizuchi observed their approach. Their tour brought them before another of the nation's powerful dragons. The great red dragon, Gerard, addressed Kalmia directly as the Divine One and introduced himself. Kalmia, in turn, politely presented herself, much to Raid's quiet amusement. He explained his sudden appearance, stating that upon hearing a guest from the divine race had arrived, he thought to offer her a tour of the Dragon Nation from the sky. Kalmia's face lit up with excitement, eagerly accepting his offer. The dragon then lowered himself, inviting her to climb aboard. Roanna and Milphie immediately voiced their concern, warning Kalmia that Gerard's flying was notoriously rough and she would surely fall. The conflicting messages left Kalmia momentarily stunned. Before she could decide, another voice joined them. It was Luna, in her true dragon form. Kalmia looked upon the dragon princess with admiration, remarking that while she was cute in her human form, as a dragon, she was gallant and slender, like a true princess. Luna felt a swell of pride, honored to receive such praise from a member of the divine race. Seeing an opportunity, she offered a safer alternative. Luna instructed Raid to mount her back first and then help pull Kalmia up. Not to be left out, Gerard declared that he would fly alongside them as an escort. Raid did as he was told, settling onto the dragon's broad back with Kalmia beside him. To prevent her from being cut by the sharp scales, he offered her his gloved hand. She looked at him, a flicker of surprise on her face, before accepting. The young girl watches with a hint of apprehension as Raid, already seated on Luna's back, asks if the dragon is ready. Luna confirms her readiness absolutely. With that, Raid announces their departure, and Luna's powerful wings begin to beat. The sudden ascent forces a grimace from her as Luna leaps into the air. They quickly join a formation of other dragons, soaring through the clouds. As they level out, he turns to check on Kalmia, who is now clinging to him from behind. He cheerfully comments on the clear sky and the wonderful view, but she can only manage a strained sound in response, her eyes squeezed shut. Her fear intensifies as she peeks downward, revealing the dizzying height from which they fly. The ground is a distant chasm, prompting a panicked thought. It's far too high. In her terror, she presses herself tightly against his back. He feels her trembling and realizes she must have a fear of heights. Noticing her distress, Luna's voice echoes, offering to descend and advising Kalmia not to push herself. But Kalmia refuses, her voice determined despite her fear. She insists that since Raid brought her all this way, she will get used to it. Gerard's voice joins the conversation, also cautioning against overdoing it. Luna agrees, referring to Kalmia as the goddess and deciding they will proceed for now, as per her wishes. The dragons continue their flight across the sky. With renewed resolve, Kalmia's expression hardens. She clenches her fists, gripping Raid's tunic with all her might, her knuckles white with the effort. A moment later, her voice rings out, calling his name. She excitedly tells him to look, proclaiming that she can now see properly and that the view is quite beautiful. He, however, is less comfortable, asking her to loosen her grip as she is squeezing his stomach. His discomfort is twofold, as he realizes with a blush that it's not just her arms squeezing him. Her entire body, chest included, is pressed firmly against his back. He tries to reassure Kalmia, who is clinging to him in terror. She cries out that she can't possibly let go, certain she will fall, but he promises that no matter what, he won't release his hold on her arms. As she trembles, Luna calls down from above, telling Kalmia not to cling so tightly. Flustered, Kalmia retorts that he is her partner. The other dragons observe the scene, with one noting that Raid has it rough. The ordeal is too much for Kalmia, who feels she can't take anymore. The stress of the flight proves overwhelming, and the short trip through the sky ends with Kalmia fainting. Raid catches her as she goes limp. It is decided then that from now on, Kalmia will not be riding with Raid. Luna observes the scene with a sharp, knowing gaze. Later, while resting, Luna, now in her elven form, leans against Raid. She remarks that if Kalmia must be with someone, it should be someone other than him. Raid dismisses the idea, saying it wasn't so bad, but Luna quietly insists that the situation was beyond her control. Her sudden closeness makes him turn his head in surprise, questioning her behavior as he speaks her name. She looks away, explaining that she feels they haven't had much time together recently. She then asks if he dislikes the feeling of being teammates. He hesitates, and she continues, confessing that this is a bit selfish of her. As the Princess of Dragons, she explains there has never been anything she couldn't obtain. Her hand rests gently on his chest as she speaks. She elaborates on her feelings, confessing that he was the one thing she always wanted by her side. However, until she left the Divine Dragon Empire, she could never have him. Now that they are finally together, she wants to feel as close to him as possible. She acknowledges that Kalmia doesn't share these feelings for him, but her own desire remains. Her face flushed, she looks directly at him and asks if he can forgive her for this selfishness. His expression softens as he meets her gaze. He reassures her that her request isn't selfish in the slightest, explaining that this is what partners are for. He tells her he will gladly accept her feelings. With a gentle blush, Luna looked up at him, her heart full. Resting beside Faye after their emotional exchange, she softly spoke his name and offered her sincere thanks. Sometime later, they arrived back at a village building, where Roanna and Meraria were waiting for them. The group stood together under a cloudy sky. The building was a public bathhouse, with separate entrances clearly marked for men and women, and fresh towels stacked neatly inside. Deciding to wash away the fatigue of their journey, Raid submerged himself in the steaming water of the men's outdoor bath, letting out a sigh of relief. He relaxed in the steaming water, pondering his next steps. Having finished his work, he considered showing Kalmia the world outside the Dragon Nation. His thoughts were suddenly interrupted by a noise, and he turned in surprise. His contemplation was shattered by a sudden, familiar presence. It was Kalmia, standing nearby, and a strange sense of déjà vu washed over him. She stood there, completely nude, and Raid realized with a start that her amnesia might have also erased her sense of shame. He called out her name, and she explained that she couldn't read the sign at the entrance. She asked what hot spring was, adding that the catfolk had recommended it. Confessing that she saw him take his clothes off, she simply copied him. As if to punctuate his thoughts, she let out a small sneeze. Raid watched her, thinking that even for someone with amnesia, this lack of basic common sense was astounding. He wondered if this was normal for the divine race. He quickly stood and wrapped a towel around his waist, instructing Kalmia to rinse herself with a bucket before getting in. He explained that hot springs are normally separated by gender and offered to leave first so she could soak. Kalmia immediately protested, insisting that wouldn't be fair to him. She met his gaze, her expression firm. She told him that she had always relied on his common sense, and it would be troubling if he started saying strange things again. He reflected on the unusual circumstance, finding it strange that she was still happy for him to teach her things, here of all places. He decided it would be fine, so long as Luna or anyone else didn't find out. Just then, Kalmia yelped as she splashed into the water, exclaiming that it was hot. As they soaked in the spring under the open sky, she turned to him and asked, "Hey, Raid, did I really live in the heavens?" He affirmed that she did, explaining that there are legends about it everywhere and that she had indeed fallen from the sky. She gazed thoughtfully into the distance, wondering what kind of place it had been. Her gaze then shifted back to him, and she asked what home was like for him. He realized that while she acted cheerful, the loss of her memory must be a source of great anxiety. He considered her question, explaining that with his parents gone and after everything that had happened, he didn't feel much attachment to his country. Instead, he stated that the Sky Dragons are his family, and wherever they are is an important place to him. She listened intently, a look of understanding on her face. "I see," she said, concluding that for him, home is where his family is. She then asked if that meant the Dragon Nation was his home. He confirmed it was, recalling how they had warmly accepted him when he was cast out and all the memories they had shared together. He declared that he loved the Dragon Nation and considered it his home. Her expression softened into a warm, gentle smile, a blush gracing her cheeks. She told him that was wonderful, truly wonderful. She continued, stating that he loves everyone, and everyone loves him in return. Raid seemed taken aback by her words, thinking to himself that love might be too grand a term. while she earnestly asked if it was really true. He realized then that there were many kinds of like and many kinds of love. His mind filled with an image of his found family. Faye playfully spraying water over a laughing Roanna and the other cat spirit tribe members, all under a sky filled with soaring dragons. Returning from his reverie, he looked at Kalmia and suggested that, for now, she should consider this place her home as well. Kalmia smiled softly, voicing her hope that her own homeland is as wonderful as the Dragon Nation. He assured her that everyone would welcome her, describing them as good people and good dragons. He encouraged her to get to know the Dragon Nation more deeply until she could truly feel at home, whether her memories returned or not. Touched by his sincerity, Kalmia was momentarily at a loss for words. Her hesitation melted away into a bright, determined smile. She agreed it was a wonderful idea and resolved to get to know and love the Dragon Nation even more. Stretching happily, she asked Raid to show her around more the next day, even venturing outside the nation's borders. It was a moment of peaceful planning, though it was inevitable that Luna would later discover their shared bath and react with considerable anger. Upon a set of ancient, crumbling ruins, a lone figure sits in quiet contemplation, a heavy silence hanging over the desolate landscape. He rises, a faint smile on his lips as he addresses an unseen presence. He announces that he has finally found them, declaring that the time has come to decide the fate of their divine tribe. In response to his own declaration, he extends a hand, and a dark, viscous substance begins to pool and spread across the stone floor before him. The shadowy liquid coalesces, rising from the ground to form a legion of silent, armored soldiers, their eyes glowing ominously in the gloom. He looks upon his creations with satisfaction, proclaiming them a new race of his own making, closer to the gods than any human. They are to be his obedient servants, answering to no one but him, the demon god. Standing before the assembled host, he formally bestows upon them their name, Dark Angel. Dark energy crackles around him as he issues his first command. In the name of the demon god Norlurus, ruler of all demons, he orders them to go to the land where the descendants of the holy dragon dwell and retrieve the god who has taken refuge there. He imbues them with a portion of his power, granting them explicit permission to annihilate anyone or anything that stands in their way, even if their opponent is a god. A sinister smile spreads across his face as he adds a single caveat to their destructive mandate. The target child, of course, must be spared. Suddenly, a sharp pain lances through him. He clutches his head, his expression contorting in agony as he questions his own endurance. He wonders if this is his limit, confused as to why he remains in pain after all this time. Far from the demon god's throne, his newly appointed commander stands poised, a confident smirk on their face. The difficulty of the mission only makes the goal more worthwhile. They turn to the legion of dark angels hovering behind them and give the order to depart. With a sharp cry, the commander leads the charge as the demonic soldiers take to the sky. Meanwhile, in a peaceful forest, Eru yelps in surprise, demanding that Kalmia not grab her tail like that. Kalmia, looking apologetic, explains she couldn't help it. She was just curious if it was real. Eru confirms that, of course, it's a real demonic trait. Watching them from a short distance, Luna remarks to Raid that Kalmia seems quite taken with Eru. Raid smiles, noting that Eru has been acting that way since breakfast, and it seems she missed her chance to come along with them. He recalls that today, at Gerard's suggestion, they're giving Kalmia a tour of the area near the Dragon Nation. He thinks to himself that they should take a break at the beautiful lake up ahead, picturing himself fishing alongside Gerard and Faye. Upon reaching the water's edge, however, Luna stops. She notices fresh footprints leading into the lake and wonders what could have made them. Raid joins her, observing the footprints in the still murky water. He deduces that whoever disturbed the lake is still nearby. Beside him, Gerard lets out a low, guttural growl. His eyes widen in sudden realization as bubbles begin to break the surface. He shouts a warning, telling everyone to get away from the lake immediately. In response to his cry, the center of the lake erupts in a violent explosion of water. From the churning water, a monstrous, horse-like creature with fins and a fishtail emerges, letting out a piercing shriek. As the group watches from the shore, Raid identifies the beast in horror, a kelpie. He observes the creature, realizing that kelpies are magical beasts that prefer pristine waters. Seeing its unnaturally swollen belly, he comes to a startling conclusion. It came to this lake to give birth. This realization casts the scene in a new light. The fallen trees and murky water were not signs of aggression, but the creature's agitation as it went into labor, crying out in the churning lake. The kelpie thrashes violently, sending a massive wave towards the shore where the group stands, while the dragons take to the sky to gain a better vantage point. From the air, Gerard cautions that they cannot risk a rough fight with the young ladies present. He calls down to Raid, asking if he can use a sealing art to stop the beast. Raid affirms that he will try. He acts swiftly. Magical chains erupt from the water's surface, wrapping around the kelpie and binding it. The creature lets out a pained shriek as its movements are restrained. He strains to maintain the sealing art, marveling at the kelpie's incredible power. Even while bound, it can still control the water. He recalls hearing that these creatures have caused countless floods during territorial disputes. Watching from above, Luna considers the potential for disaster if such a creature were to rampage within the Dragon Nation. She resolves that there must be a way to remove it from the area. As she gathers energy for a breath attack, Raid shouts for her, and Luna to wait. He knows that a direct hit from an ancient dragon is immensely powerful, even against a beast as large as the Kelpie. Before Luna can unleash her attack, Kalmia steps forward, pleading for a moment to speak with the creature. She insists the poor thing is just scared. Luna is taken aback, questioning how she could possibly talk to it. She explains that it's not as if a Kelpie could understand their language anyway. Despite this, she believes she can probably communicate with it. It is, she says, just a feeling she has. She looks towards the dragon Luna and pleads, insisting that she will be the one to persuade the restrained Kelpie. Raid addresses Luna, deciding they should trust Kalmia for now. He explains that because she is of the divine tribe, she might actually be able to communicate with monsters. Luna counters that the plan is incredibly dangerous, pointing out that Kalmia would be crushed in an instant if the Kelpie trampled her. Raid agrees, promising to set things up so they can rescue her at a moment's notice. He turns to Kalmia, warning her to hold still as things might get a little rough. As she wonders what he's about to do, he invokes his power, sealing art, serpent binding chains. The chains bind Kalmia and lift her into the air. From atop Luna, Raid lowers the suspended girl towards the lake. Horrified, Kalmia shouts his name, asking if there wasn't any other way. From a distance, Eru remarks on his use of a daughter of the divine tribe as bait. Raid retorts that he told Kalmia it might be rough, insisting this is the best way to guarantee her safety. The girl dangles helplessly before the enraged, thrashing Kelpie. Raid quietly reassures a worried Luna that they will pull her back the moment it gets dangerous. The beast lets out a furious roar. Unfazed, Kalmia greets it with a gentle smile, asking how it is feeling. She continues speaking with empathy, acknowledging that the creature wouldn't be in a good mood if it were tied up like this. Luna watches from the side, her expression softening with concern. She apologizes for restraining it so suddenly and asks it to please try and calm down, explaining that they have no intention of hurting it needlessly. The Kelpie stares back, its rage seemingly subsiding as it listens. She speaks to the creature with a gentle voice, assuring it that everything is all right and that no one nearby wishes it any harm. The Kelpie's eye widens in surprise as it registers a feeling it has never known before. To maintain this newfound calm, she asks it to simply stay seated where it is. She gives a quick signal to the dragons circling above, confirming that the situation is under control. On the ground, the Kelpie lowers itself, whimpering softly as the magical chains hold in place. As the creature's hoof trembles on the earth, her own feet touch down softly nearby. In that moment, the binding chains of light dissolve into nothing. From a safe distance, flanked by Faye and Luna, Raid calls out to her, asking if it is now safe. Kalmia turns and confirms that everything is fine. She approaches the Kelpie and gently rests a hand on its head, explaining to the others what she has learned. The voice of the creature's heart, she says, has come through to her. It has traveled from very far away to give birth to its young and simply does not want to be disturbed. He watches in amazement, realizing that the ability to read a monster's heart is an incredible power. He wonders if this, along with the tone of her voice from earlier, is the awesome power of the divine tribe. His thoughts are interrupted as Kalmia senses a clear shift in the magical energy around them. She turns back to the Kelpie, asking what is wrong as the creature's body begins to tense and strain. The realization strikes Raid instantly. He tells the others to give them some space, understanding that the creature is about to be born. Kalmia, too, recognizes the feeling with wide-eyed shock. She watches, mesmerized, as the Kelpie gives birth, a small, dark, serpentine offspring emerging into the world. In the aftermath of the tense encounter, the mother Kelpie gently nudges her newborn offspring, which lies weakly on the shore of the lake. The mother nuzzles her child affectionately as the small creature, with a shake of its head, stumbles onto its feet for the first time. Watching the tender moment, Kalmia smiles, observing that even monsters are living creatures with feelings, just like them. Raid quietly agrees with her assessment. She turns to Luna, suggesting that the mother and child should be allowed to stay at the lake for a while. She asks Luna to ensure the ancient dragons don't disturb them, adding that since it's a monster from another land, she'll make an exception and inform her father later. Luna readily accepts the request. With the matter settled, the group begins to depart. Raid thanks Luna for her help and proposes they return to the Dragon Nation. As they walk, Kalmia looks over at him, her expression turning serious. He asks why she's looking at him so intently. With a hint of sadness, Kalmia asks about her parents, wondering aloud if they're kind people. Raid, though surprised, assures her that he is sure they are. She explains that seeing the mother Kelpie's fierce devotion made her think. She muses that if her own child had been taken away, the creature would have stormed all the way to the Dragon Nation to find it. Her thoughts turn inward, questioning her own situation. She reveals that her parents cast her down from a place called the Celestial Realm and wonders if they are still desperately searching for her. If the divine tribe is as powerful as Raid claims, she reasons they should have found her by now. He listens patiently before responding. He admits that no one knows the exact circumstances of her arrival, or if the divine tribe is even capable of finding her. He reminds her of the state she was in when she first appeared, like a falling star. He continues his explanation, revealing a critical detail. If she had hit the ground at that speed, she would have died, even as a member of the divine tribe. However, she was unconscious, and someone else was using some kind of magic or spell to slow her descent. ensuring she wouldn't crash. He finishes his explanation, suggesting that such immense power could only have been wielded by someone who cares for her deeply. Hearing this, a faint blush appears on her cheeks. She understands and expresses her happiness at the thought. 3 months pass. While out for a walk, Rowena observes a panting Calmia and points out that she really needs to build up her stamina. As she catches her breath, Calmia reflects on her situation. She has grown accustomed to life in the Dragon Nation, but her memories remain lost. The threat of the Emperor still looms, a danger that has prompted Raid to search for information within the Holy Dragon Empire. Her thoughts are interrupted as she watches the young Kelpie with Rowena. She admits that while she was anxious about her amnesia, seeing the baby grow up safely brings her joy, believing she even saw it smile. She elaborates on her newfound perspective, deciding to think positively. If her good memories won't return, then neither will the bad ones. Turning to Milie, she asks if, as a fellow water spirit, she also feels happy watching the Kelpie's child grow. Milie hesitates, admitting she isn't sure how to feel. She reveals that monsters were responsible for destroying her homeland, which makes it difficult for her to be fond of them. Rowena, however, agrees with Calmia's sentiment. She believes that it is a good thing for any child to grow, no matter their race. Besides, she adds with a smile, the baby is simply adorable. With the conversation concluded, Calmia suggests they should head back before it starts to rain. Rowena immediately turns it into a challenge, proposing a race back home, which Calmia readily accepts. Her acceptance is met with eager looks from Rowena and Milie, but Calmia herself seems to immediately regret the decision, her stamina already flagging. She is startled from her thoughts by a sudden, piercing cry from the mother Kelpie, who rears its head back in alarm at something beyond the water surface. The sudden shriek puts Milie, Calmia, and Rowena on high alert, their expressions shifting instantly to ones of shock and apprehension. Their shock gives way to a palpable sense of dread. Calmia feels a strange, unsettling presence. Rowena asks Milie if she's all right, and while Milie confirms she is fine, she admits to having a bad feeling about the situation. She acts on this feeling immediately, manifesting a bow made of pure light. Her resolve is firm. Whatever appears, she will take it down. From the sky above, the source of their unease descends. Dark, winged figures begin to fall like an ominous rain. As they fall, Calmia's mind races. She recalls hearing that the demons Raid had confronted in the past, including the one called Eru, were monsters whose magical power was on par with that of an ancient dragon. And yet, the reality before her is undeniable. She trembles at the thought that there is no way beings of such immense power should be wandering around so freely. The truth is far worse. It is not just a few, but a vast army of these winged figures, and she realizes with horror that the magical power of each and every one of them is on par with, or even greater than, an ancient dragon. Faced with this overwhelming force, Calmia wonders if they are targeting the mother Kelpie and her child, but notes their movements are strange, showing no sign of an attack on the lake. Rowena snarls in disagreement, her senses picking up a foul scent wafting from these people. Her senses prove correct as the dark figures change course. With a look of terror, Calmia realizes they are the target. The dark angels are coming for them. A strange, dark mist materializes in the sky above the land of dragons. Raid stares at it in alarm, questioning what it could be. Beside him, Luna senses its nature, remarking on the ominous and immense magical power radiating from it. Recognizing the immediate danger, he declares the situation a disaster and begins issuing orders. He tells the girls to evacuate to a safe place and to inform everyone they see. To the dragons, he gives a different command. They're to proceed to the scene while he goes to inform the Dragon King, promising to follow them shortly. With his instructions delivered, he breaks into a sprint. A single, urgent thought occupies his mind. Lady Calmia and the other 2 girls had gone into the forest and still had not returned. In that same forest, the danger has already found them. A dark angel, a figure of black armor and shadowy wings, dives towards Rowena, Milie, and Calmia. As they huddle on the ground, Calmia silently prays for their safety. Before the creature can strike, a volley of energy blasts streaks through the air, converging on its position. The blasts impact the dark angel's armor, but they shatter harmlessly against the dark plating, failing to slow its descent. Its charge unbroken, the winged warrior continues its dive, sword extended. From the ground, Eru and Milie watch its terrifyingly swift approach. Reacting in an instant, Eru shouts Rowena's name, confirming she knows what to do as she hurls a small object towards the girl. Rowena catches it just as the dark angel's sword swings down. A brilliant barrier of light erupts from her hands, blocking the powerful strike. Having enabled their defense, Eru lands softly on the forest floor, her expression set with grim determination as she faces the enemy. The winged dark angel lands with a splash, its presence menacing. Calmia and Rowena are thrown back by the force of its arrival, while Milie lies vulnerable on the ground. Calmia, her face a mask of shock and fear, screams Milfie's name. Paralyzed by terror, Calmia can only watch. A desperate thought echoes in her mind. She wants to help, but her body refuses to obey, trembling uncontrollably. The single, glowing eye of the dark angel fixes upon them from within its shadowy helm. Beside her, Rowena voices the despair that grips them, questioning if this is their end, to die here without comprehension. But as the dark figure advances, A flicker of hope ignites in Roanna's eyes. She realizes with a start that Milie has not yet been defeated. She thinks of Milie's unspoken feelings, how the young elf, though she would never say it aloud, has grown to cherish the Dragon Nation as if it were the true homeland she lost. It is for this very reason, to protect her new home and everyone in it, that Milie has dedicated herself to relentless training day after day, never wanting to lose them as she lost a real home. This fierce determination is why Roanna smiles with conviction, certain that Milie will pull through. She calls out to her friend, her voice filled with faith. In response, Milie pushes herself up from the churning water, her gaze hardened with resolve. She declares that she is not finished. As Calmia watches, her own hope renewed, Milie makes a solemn vow to protect her home and every person she holds dear. With her vow, a tremendous power answers. A colossal water dragon, a spirit of pure, churning liquid, bursts forth from the depths behind her. It rears its head and lets out a silent roar towards the flock of dark angels descending from the sky, a physical manifestation of her will to protect. At her command, the massive water spirit surges forward, launching itself into the air as a living projectile of immense force. It unleashes a torrent from its maw, a high-pressure blast of water that scythes through the air, slamming into the squadron of dark angels and scattering them in the deluge. Watching her friend's incredible display, Calmia's face lit up with hope. She believed Milie's power was amazing, certain that at this rate, she could emerge victorious from the sky. However, the commander of the Dark Host watched with a dismissive smirk, regarding the colossal water spirit as nothing more than an amusing little magic trick. The water dragon lunged forward, unleashing a torrent of power that met a sphere of dark energy, erupting in a blinding flash and a shower of mist. As the spray rained down, Milie stood frozen, her eyes wide with disbelief at what had just transpired. She fell to her knees, whispering in despair as she saw the impossible. The entire swarm of dark angels remained untouched. Their commander floated above, mockingly complimenting her ability to manipulate so much water from mere surface dwellers. The sight sent a jolt of pure terror through Calmia, her hopeful expression now replaced with wide-eyed shock. Her shock gave way to a dawning, dreadful realization. As she focused on the commander, her unique senses perceiving the flow of magical energy, she questioned what that thing truly was. The answer came to her in a chilling wave. The being before her was an unfathomable, absolute darkness. She understood it was some kind of absolute being, merely mimicking a person's form. It was an entity that carried the very stench of death. The commander then spoke directly to her, asking if she was from the divine tribe. Calmia could only stare, her mind reeling at the existence of a being with such overwhelming power. The Dark Angel commander regards Calmia with a faint, knowing smile. They counter her unspoken question with one of their own, expressing surprise that she would be the one to ask if they were from the divine tribe. With confidence, the commander confirms it, stating that they are indeed a member of the divine tribe, just like her. The commander then extends a hand, inviting her to speak in a more suitable location, the celestial realm. Without waiting for an answer, they begin to levitate, intending to take Calmia with them. Refusing to allow this, Milie shouts in defiance. She vows that she will not let them take her friend, declaring that she will never lose her home and her companions again as she charges forward to intercept. The commander reacts instantly, turning to meet Milfie's charge with their staff leveled. The elf girl's eyes widen in surprise at the speed of the counterattack. With a swift, brutal motion, the commander strikes Milie, the impact sending a shockwave through the air. Raid cries out her name in alarm. The blow sends her staggering back, dark energy crackling around the point of impact. Calmia and Roanna can only watch, frozen in horror. She looks down at her trembling hands, a quiet apology escaping her lips as the reality of her powerlessness sinks in. Just as she begins to fall, Raid appears, catching her in his arms. He shouts her name, his expression grim as he recognizes that she risked her life to protect her friends. In his hand, a sword begins to glow with a brilliant light. He gently pushes her behind him, stepping forward to face the commander. Raising the luminous blade, Raid declares that it is now his turn to protect everyone and demands the commander stay away from Milie. The commander's composure shatters. Their eyes widen in disbelief as they stare at the sword in Raid's hand. Behind him, Milie calls out his name, a mix of relief and astonishment in her voice. As the standoff began, the chaos of the battle continued. A swarm of winged monstrosities descended, prompting Calmia to shout orders. She urged an unseen ally to take Milie and Roanna to safety, declaring that she was there to help. Before the creatures could reach them, the red dragon Gerard tore through the sky, intercepting the swarm. He roared for the others to leave these foes to him. His draconic allies' intervention bought Raid a moment, his gaze following Gerard's aerial battle. But his opponent's voice cut through the din, questioning if he should be looking away. He didn't wait for an answer. The commander lunged, swinging his staff in a wide arc. Raid reacted instantly, raising his glowing sword to parry the blow. Their weapons met with a brilliant explosion of light. The commander's staff sparked and cracked against the blade's divine energy, the force of the impact staggering Raid. He held his ground, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock and resolve as he felt the power coursing through his weapon. The two combatants stood locked in a tense stalemate, the commander's weapon vibrating violently against the steady glow of Raid's sword. His attention shifted to the blade in his hands. He finally understood why it had begun to glow. It was the sword's innate power, a demon-slaying blessing named Reiden, which activates in the presence of the demon tribe. This realization prompted a direct question. Raid asked if his opponent was the god of the demon tribe. With a confident smile, the commander confirmed his identity, stating that he was indeed the demon god, Nariris. He then turned his attention to the glowing sword. Nariris identified its power as that of the holy dragon, Edelgrippus. He admitted his surprise at facing such a power in this way, but contemptuously dismissed Raid, remarking that in the end, he was merely human. As Raid processes the demon god's words, Roanna expresses her confusion, wondering aloud why their Lord God would entrust the child to someone like him. Raid, taken aback, can only question the term Lord God. The title refers to the goddess Triteria, the sovereign ruler of all gods, recognized throughout the world. A realization dawns on him. If Nariris is truly targeting Kalmia, then it's highly probable that the goddess Triteria sent the child to the Dragon Nation specifically to help her escape the demon god's grasp. His train of thought is cut short as Nariris addresses him directly, using his full title as the Dragon Knight and hero who slayed the Demon King. The demon god makes it clear that he has no intention of letting Raid escape, which catches the young man by surprise. Nariris elaborates, stating that he is well aware of Raid for slaughtering his precious demons during the subjugation of the Demon King. He cryptically adds that various circumstances have now put him in a difficult position, an explanation Raid questions. He dismisses the question, claiming he lacks the time to explain. A torrent of dark energy erupts from his body, and Raid stares in wide-eyed shock at the display of power. The pressure is overwhelming. He understands that holding back for even a moment will mean certain annihilation. He resolves to use his secret technique, Yada no Kami, knowing he can only activate it once. His only chance is to create an opening, just for an instant. Suddenly, a roar splits the air as Gerard charges forward, calling his name. The dragon hurls a massive, dark object toward the demon god, creating the very opportunity Raid needed. Now, he shouts, seizing the moment. He lunges, sword held high, unleashing his ultimate move. Sidinya, secret technique. Yada no Kami, he cries, channeling all his power into the strike as he closes the distance to Nariris. But the powerful blow is stopped dead. The demon god catches the blade between his gloved fingers, effortlessly halting the attack. He stands behind Raid, his hand casually resting on a young man's shoulder, effortlessly holding the sword at bay. With a calm, almost bored tone, he advises that a mere dragon tamer shouldn't strain himself so hard. The words send a jolt of disbelief through Raid, his eyes widening in shock. As Raid struggles against the unyielding grip, Nariris leans in closer, his voice a low whisper. He explains that if an attack of this caliber could fell a god, humanity would have claimed the divine throne long ago. Suddenly, Raid finds himself several paces away, the pressure gone. He questions what just transpired, quickly realizing it wasn't simple speed. It felt as though Nariris had been standing behind him from the very start. He refuses to yield, declaring that he is not finished. Gripping his sword, he recalls all the strength he has gained on his journey, channeling it into his next move, piercing Dragon Shield. With a powerful cry, vowing to protect everyone, he lunges forward. He unleashes a technique from the Holy Dragon Empire's combat arts, a swift, arcing kick known as the Dragon Wing Waltz. The kick, aimed with all his might, is stopped dead. Nariris catches his leg with a single hand, an unbothered, almost amused expression on his face. His eyes widen once more in utter disbelief. A sharp crack of energy emanates from Nariris' grip, causing Raid to cry out in pain. The demon god remarks that he has played around enough for now, adding that he still needs to pursue that child. As he speaks, he notices a trickle of blood at the corner of his own mouth. He looks down his hand, the one that blocked the kick, now slightly bruised and blackened. For the first time, a flicker of surprise crosses his features. He staggers, dark blood erupting from the corner of his eye where the minuscule attack landed. Before he can recover, Raid presses the attack, kicking at his staff, but is bewildered when the blow is easily deflected. He leaps back, trying to understand what just happened. He questions how the demon-slaying blessing could have possibly worked, as he knows it requires direct contact with his sword. A realization dawns on him. He recalls that before unleashing his Yada no Kami technique, he had cloaked himself in the magical power of Reiden. That must be it, the demon-slaying blessing. At the same moment, Nariris reaches the same conclusion. He understands that the demon-slaying blessing traveled through Raid's body and reached him, and that even this indirect contact is what has left him in his current state. He looks at Raid with cold resolve, deciding that simply killing him will solve the problem. In response, Raid questions him, asking if he knows a Mikitsuchi. He presses further, stating that only a descendant of that man should be able to wield such a sword, demanding to know who Nariris is. Before he can finish, Nariris closes the distance in an instant, placing a hand flat against his chest. Raid's eyes widen in shock. He unleashes his power, commanding Raid to become a star twinkling in the darkness. A devastating blast of energy, an asteroid, erupts from his palm, engulfing the Dragon Tamer completely.